Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 277 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it's me, Karak, with ACG.
And I'm Dustin with Colin's Last Stand and Handsome Phantom.
Gentlemen, the week is upon us. Next generation consoles are here. This show's going to be structured a little more different than what we normally do, where we usually try to hit the hot topics every week. This time around, what we're doing is touching on the PlayStation 5, the Series X. All of us have both consoles. We're going to talk about a lot of the games we've been playing on there, such as Demon's Souls, Miles Morales, Godfall, Astro's Playroom, and of course, we're going to get to, at the end of the show, as always, your questions that you submit. Now, for those of you who are new to this show, just know you can get early access every Friday through patreon.com/MrMattyPlays. If you want a little bit more podcast content, you'll go ahead and sign up on the Patreon as well. And over there, you'll get Extra Slice of Ham. It's a bonus hour show that we do every Wednesday. And this last week, because we do our show where we always start off with what we're playing, and I thought to myself, let's base a whole episode around what the audience is playing. So that was all their submissions, and it was pretty neat. But overall, this week's intro is going to be shorter than usual because, you know, we normally talk about what we're playing here, but that's what the whole show is really based around because there hasn't been much news, just lots of games coming out. But of course, I got to check on how my lovely friends are doing before we get into anything. We can't just go in dry, right? So, Dustin, Karak, how are you doing?
Go for it, Dustin.
I'm doing pretty well. Everything's been pretty smooth this week as far as consoles go. I know a lot of people are either waiting for consoles to come or, you know, don't have one secured. So I'm very thankful that things went by without a hitch. Just before we started this show, I went and I sold my Xbox One S on Facebook Market. And so now I feel like a little bit of, not that, I think I mentioned on this show, I wasn't going to get a Series X. And then on Sunday, I realized I had an extra pre-order just because I pre-ordered a bunch to help people out, not for scalping, including you, Matty. Matty's the proof that I wasn't scalping.
I got it sitting right here, property of Dustin Furman.
That's right. So I ended up keeping it just because I was like, well, I guess I should have one for, you know, since I'm on podcasts and stuff like that, I'd like to have the insight. So,
right.
Yeah, I sold the old one. And everything is good to go. What about you, Karak?
Been quite boring. Nothing of interest has happened.
Yeah.
Wow. I think last Friday, did I go on this podcast? I think last Friday I had to bail because of the reviews, right? And I feel so dumb because I did my review for the PS5, and then over the weekend I had all the issues, and it was like it was just horrible timing, man. So that was a disaster. But you know what? It's new. I mean, it's new hardware. And now I've become the sounding board, though, for everybody with issues. I mean, thousands of DMs. Like, I can help you. People are like, so I have these green like flecks on my screen on the PS5. Should I do this or that? I'm like, dude, I have no fucking clue what you should do, man. Like that, I'm no connection there. But that was pretty much what I dealt with. And then playing Valhalla for review. Demon's Souls and a bunch of others we'll talk about. It's been really busy. It's been like,
yeah, dude.
There's a lot of stuff in a contained time frame, and other than Gods and Monsters, it's sort of now, you know, we got a little bit of a stretch, which is nice.
Right? Like it all just kind of blasted at once, and you know, we've all been anticipating this week for so long, and now here we are on the other side, and you know, obviously we got to finish these games. Like I still have to finish in my position Demon's Souls, Miles Morales, but once those are done, it's just emptiness till presumably, you know, Cyberpunk or Phoenix Rising, of course, the awfully named open world game from Ubisoft. But gentlemen, shall we take a dive into everything here?
Oh, I want to let the audience know we'll have to dip early, just so it's not an awkward like, bye guys, I gotta leave, you know.
Yeah, right.
So I have about 45 or so minutes. So that's perfect timing.
That is perfect.
Going from one podcast to another should be fun.
Yeah, this is your warm up right now, right?
This is the warm up.
You're going to hit Sacred Symbols with a whole new level of professionalism, a whole new level of good jokes. I think you're going to have. You're going to be loose, right?
I get the jokes from Karak though, not from you, Matty. Unfortunately, just saying.
There we go.
So.
Uh-oh. Well, then you're in deep shit. Prepare to be prepare to be demonetized.
Damn.
All right, let's talk about, for starters, PlayStation 5, gentlemen. All of us have one. We're gonna, of course, like I said earlier, talk about games in a little bit, but general console experience, features that stood out to you, things you really like about it that you could see going far in the long run. What are your overall impressions of what we got our hands on here? Oh man,
Karak?
who's gonna shoot their shot first here?
Well, I don't want to like. I'll just go short, and because I did do the video on my issues. So the issues that worked, ignoring the problems, because those are tangible, but they're not really a part of everything else. I would say I'm actually the controller's the best part for me, because I'm not really as excited as everybody else for a remake. Like, I get that people like Dark Souls, but it's like, or Demon Souls, but to me it's not a very good release to really grab me. It looks amazing though. We can talk about that in a bit. But the controller is awesome. Battery life is awesome. It runs 50, 60 ohm headsets, which is great. Battery life is longer. I was really disappointed with the DualSense and what they've done. Like, I feel that's like pretty much shiny new kid toy, and that's going to die out really quick unless somebody ups the fidelity, which I'm sure they will. It's just right now it was especially COD, because I was really interested in COD. They were like, every gun is going to feel completely different, and I was like, whoa, that could be awesome. But that's really regardless, because to me, I think those are add-ons and like gimmicks that could be cool, where the controller itself is the base. And to me, this is the best controller they've ever released. That's just my personal opinion. It's fucking so... I don't like the PlayStation Plus button in this. That's a horrible placement for that fucking thing. But the rest of it is so awesome and so comfortable. I'm an Xbox fan a little bit more than this, but this is so close now where, I mean, people who follow me probably know I just did not like the PS4, PS3 controllers. The only thing I have noticed is I have 3, and like Yongyi and now a couple, more than one other reviewer have noticed, the D-pads are not very good in these. All 3 D-pads I have sound completely different, and I can tell which one I have just by clicking the left on the control. And Yong mentioned it in his review, and I did not talk to him prior, and I was like, God, people are going to think I'm so anal like about this, but I was sitting at home by myself going click, 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 and I grabbed the other one and click, click, click. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like, am I going? And then I saw Yongyi's video, and Yongyi's like, dude, there's something weird. All 3 are distinctly different. All 3 work perfectly. So who knows what that means, right? Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's...
Like, you're saying your controller, some are more clicky than others?
Dude, left and up feel totally different on each one. One's spongy, one's not. It's like Goldilocks, dude.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's interesting you mentioned that, because my DualSense, I like how it feels. I'm like you. It feels a lot better. I think it's their best controller. But mine's very spongy. It's very, like, the button presses are very akin to that of a normal PS4 controller. And... I don't know. A lot of people don't like the Series X controller or Xbox in general because it's very clicky. I like that feeling. I think there's good feedback on that it kind of just lightly bounces your finger. I don't like soft presses. It's really my only complaint that's carried over with PlayStation, but I get it's a bit of an identity with them. But overall, it's way more comfortable. I like the heft. I've always, since like the Duke controller when I was a kid, using that on the original Xbox, right? Like, dude, I was a little kid using this thing. I was like, oh my God. But
hitting the button like this, Matty, instead of your fingers.
But for real, it was awesome. Eventually they released like a shrunken down version of it.
Yeah.
But I love that controller, man. And so I've always been a fan of the more girthy controllers, so to say, that fill out your hands. And both generations this time around, I think, nailed it. But I'm going to be really curious to see, because I agree with DualSense being this neat thing, but it's almost gimmicky where it's up to the developers. I said this in my console review that Astro's Playroom displays fantastically, I think, what the DualSense can kind of bring in the feeling of the game and bringing it to life a little bit more. But right when I went to Demon Souls Remake, it was business as usual. Outside of when I pulled back a bow and arrow, and there was very light resistance on that. And it was more like a click. It wasn't like a, like some people describe like it almost vibrates. Mine was almost like a hesitation then a click, like something got stuck more so. So that might just be adjustments in general. The only thing that really did stick out in a game like Demon's Souls was, this is probably the wrong term, but like I call them micro vibrations. That's the term I've given it.
No, it's pretty close to what it is.
Yeah, it's like these little, when you walk through a box in Demon's Souls, you feel like just in the left, if there's like debris to the left side of your character and you're kicking it around, you'll feel like a couple little vibrations on the left side of your controller. That type of feedback is pretty immersive, and it helps the game a lot, even if it's a weird thing like ragdoll physics with a box. So what it's really shown me is that if the developers want to take advantage of it, it'll be cool. But I hope it isn't like, and I haven't played Black Ops Cold War, what you're saying with that game, though, where it's almost words on a paper and then you play it and it's not what you imagine, which is like, oh, the assault rifle might have a little more, like, I guess, pump to it, where a machine gun might come down a little bit quicker. That type of difference there is something people really want to see, I think. So it's really up to developers to take full advantage of it. So it could be like a Wii motion control thing where they just go all in on it, or...
And I think they will. Like CODs, they said every gun would be different. I had an issue where it felt, strangely enough, the stick. And I complained about that in my podcast because it actually causes the controller to move when you pull, which makes your aim worse. So I already know multiple people who have it, and they've turned it off so they can aim better and call it. Like, so it's cool for immersiveness, but it's not so cool because it makes a thunk sound when you try to pull a trigger. So it'll go normal, and then it hits, and then it'll be like, bump, and that'll cause your finger to go up, and especially if you don't have aiming on. But I like the idea of it. I turned it down. I left it on, but turned it down in the PS5 settings. I don't think for me yet I've seen something that made me go, oh, wow. But it's something that's there, which is all I care about. Like, I don't care that it's there. It's cool that it is because, somebody can use it. Awesome. It's just the ones I've seen so far haven't been. And then overall, the system, I said wait for a sale because I think it's way too expensive. I think both of them are way too expensive to just run out and get right now unless... something is just so grabbing you. But neither have really been, they're rated differently because there's no big IPs for me on these. It's all about backwards compatibility, which PS5, Xbox do awesome. PS5, in fact, in some games does better because they had a larger jump in the past with the lower res. So to me, that's the plus. So, and you'll get a lot of people who say, well, there's no games on the PS4 I want to play anymore. Why would I care? Or there's no games on the Xbox. I'm like, unless you're Inhuman, it's impossible to play all the games. So, yeah, right. I don't get that argument. I wish I was those people. I wish I was, yes, because I would not have FOMO, which I think we all have, where you find out somebody's playing Valhalla and you're playing like Gods and Monsters or whatever, and you're like, meh, that sucks. Yeah. So overall, pretty happy. I did have those issues, which, in and of itself, but as a piece of hardware, if this one doesn't fail, I'm very happy for the future. Like, I think in the future, we're going to be in good shape, especially power-wise. These things are monsters, man. Yeah. Like, they're fucking legit monsters.
Yeah, they actually are.
Oh, well, that too. Size-wise, they're monsters.
Yeah. I thought that's what you meant, because I was a big proponent of supporting... PS5's new look, right? It's very...
You were wrong.
I was wrong. You're right, though. I was wrong. I've set this thing up in my room, and it is fucking disgusting. I hate it. It's
nasty.
I fucking hate... I usually have never cared, right? I'm like, play the game, I don't care, but now I know it does matter to some extent. Is it gonna affect the game? But, dude, awesome. I can't stand how this shit looks, dude. I have it on its side because if it's up tall, it's gonna clash into my TV.
Oh,
but
gotcha.
But I'm afraid also that thing's like it's a hefty like 25-pound piece of technology, and standing that thing up tall, I'm like, that's just gonna fall, man. So I have to have it horizontal either way. I don't know if you try to lay it horizontal, but the clipping for it, if you try to move the console in that horizontal stand, it's a train wreck. Like, man.
It shifts, yeah. But it should have been delivered by monkeys in the 2001 A Space Odyssey music. Like, it's a monolith. When that thing arrives, it's like, dur, 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 dur. And I remember pulling it out of the box and going, no one who's seen a picture of this understands what it is. No one.
That's what I
including
thought
myself.
too. Like everyone who opens the boxes, no one is going to say, about as big as I thought.
No one will say that, Dustin.
No.
I fucking dude, and I remember I told my wife, I'm like, and my wife is like, cover that thing. That is fucking horrendous. And I'm like, no, it'll be covered because it doesn't mix with anything. But I remember looking at it going, if I wanted to be fired from Razer, I would have designed this. Razer would have looked at it and said, fuck you, dude. You're out. Now I get it. Somebody designed it and I don't want to piss on their work. But man.
I just
Dude,
don't like the
so big.
wavy faceplates. I don't.
It's so big. It's just such a monster, man.
Yeah, I just don't get why you can't lay it on its side without the faceplates. Honestly, I think it would just because I looked at my PS4 after. I have a base PS4. I was looking at that while it was set up, and I was like, "What happened, man?" Like,
now I want to hear what Dustin thinks because I don't know, man. Like, are you as excited
about the design?
Or are you as against the design? I didn't know. I mean, other than the size, I know you noticed that, but are you like, is it feng shui your shit?
This is a gut thought, but part of me, so in the photos, I don't have a problem with the design. I don't think it's amazing, but I don't think it's hideous.
Okay.
But now that I have it in person,
right.
The size makes me like the design less.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how to explain that. But this thing, like, I'm looking at it under my TV. I'm like, this thing is a certified chode. Like, that's what it is. It is a fucking, like, just giant thing.
It's your friend who didn't show up dressed for the wedding. And everybody else did. Right? When you look at it. Yeah. That's funny.
So, I mean, I don't hate it. Like, it's one of those things that it's like, it really doesn't bother me.
It won't affect it. Yeah, right.
Right. Like, and I don't feel the need to like cover it up or anything like that. I'm just like, I'm still in a bit of amazement just because I didn't expect, I was defending the design. I was like, I think this thing looks cool. It looks sleek. And now that I have it, something about it just looks just not just bigger, but like fatter and chunkier. Like something about it is not as sleek.
Your old grandma's cat version of a fucking console, right?
Yes.
All I'm saying is when they do a redesign or a slimmed down version,
I
usually don't buy those half steps, but I feel like they're trying to get people like me to just buy in. I'll absolutely do it. No questions asked. What did you guys think of the user experience when you were going through the menus and the trophies? You can see how many hours you've played, for example, on all your games. I thought that was kind of fun to run through because PlayStation really never tracked that. It was always based game by game. They've added even a game switcher, which was kind of like not their version of quick resume because it doesn't function the same way, but the idea is kind of there. What'd you guys make of overall your experience navigating some of the system menus?
Continue. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. The big thing that everyone is excited about is that the PlayStation Store is not complete ass anymore. I was noticing that it doesn't have a lot of the same feature set, which is usually pretty normal for a new launch.
For a new thing.
Right. But like Nintendo has never made their store better for the Switch. But so hopefully I'm assuming it will get better as it goes, but we have to be at least take it for what it is. It is much faster. Now, Karak, you were tweeting about this today, and I didn't have the same experience, but I was experimenting with some of the UI stuff. And specifically, I put in my PS4 copy of No Man's Sky, turned it on, and then I was just like messing around, and I was like, I don't think this is the PS5 version. And you have to like do some weird shit where you like go to the options and then like redeem the PS5 version.
Right.
And then re-download it.
Call of Duty. Did you guys see that stream yesterday? Sorry to interrupt, but this is hilarious. The guy streamed for like an hour of Call of Duty and was like, this looks pretty good. And people are like, not as good as you think, PS4 version.
Right.
Instead of PS5. Sorry.
And that's, your tweet was talking about how you have to specifically go and update it to be the right version. It's not seamless at all. In fact, it's very unintuitive, especially compared to the Series X, where it's like you don't even have to think about it. It just, I mean, my Series X experience has been exclusively Game Pass, just because I don't even own any Xbox games really. And it's all been seamless. I didn't accidentally play the last gen version or anything like that.
Right.
So, but yeah, the UI, like the cards, I don't love them and I don't hate them either. Like when you press the PlayStation button, it was interesting in that the help features, like there was, when I was playing Astro, there was a few where I was like, where the fuck is this puzzle piece? And so I actually used the help feature, and it was, I mean, some people would say that would just take away from the fact that, you know, you're not finding it yourself. But I was at the point where it was more satisfying for me to just fucking find it and move on.
Sometimes it's cool too, right? To be told and go, oh, it's there. Like then think about it that way. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. So yeah, I thought that it was the way that they implement the help. And what's cool too is that it knew which ones I already had. So I didn't have to search around for the right tip. So the help is well done. I will say that as far as how it's implemented. And the other thing too is that it's in Demon Souls, it is like not even necessarily help. It's just like some tips. It's not going to show you specifically what routes and stuff to take. So overall, I was kind of surprised that I thought that was actually a pretty neat little feature. Again, we talked about this in the past. We don't know what the implementation is going to be past first and second party. But
right.
Just to go back real quick to the DualSense, one other thing, because I think you guys pretty much covered, like, obviously the haptics are cool. Karak, you had mentioned about people playing Call of Duty. The first thing I thought is I was like, any kind of competitive player is just going to turn that off, like, instantly.
Unfortunately.
Cool for campaign, though, for sure.
Yes, very, very much. Yeah.
The one thing that surprised me that I didn't hear a lot of talk about in reviews and previews is that I like the sound that comes out of the DualSense. And I did not expect that, because I hate the sounds that come out of the PS4. And I think for the most part that comes down to implementation, because the sounds that are coming out when I'm playing Demon Souls are very subtle. It'll be like, I think it's like sometimes like sword hits might go through it, but it's not like someone's voice coming from my controller or something like that. It's much more low key, and I really actually like that aspect of it.
Yeah, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I almost forgot. That's one of my favorite parts. I usually always game with a headset on, but the sound that comes through the controller really enhance things for sure, because you feel it and then you hear it. And once again, Astro is a good example of that, but Demon Souls, sometimes when you were right, when your sword hits the wall, for example, you hear the dink come from your controller and you sort of feel it maybe on the right side. If you're hitting with your right hand. And that was really cool. I totally forgot about that. It's good you brought it up.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, because Maddie, you were kind of saying how it's the overall DualSense experience is more subtle, much more low key in Demon Souls. And I was thinking about that also for Spider-Man. And I actually think that I like that about Spider-Man, is that, like, specifically what I'm thinking of when it comes to adaptive triggers is that if you lightly press on the right trigger, that will be your like web sling to like fly around. After it shoots, you can feel like like it's almost like it feels like it's refilling. It's very subtle, but I actually was like, this is kind of neat in that it's just like a little touch. It doesn't need to be like, you know, crazy rumbling all over the place like in Astro's Playroom all the time. So I'm curious to see what other kind of subtle implementations can kind of be integrated going forward. But yeah, so that's kind of, I guess I jumped from UI to DualSense.
That's fine though. It's an important point to bring up. For me, the UI, I'm still getting used to the whole thing, man. I've had some trouble getting around and, you know, recognizing, because in my review I mentioned how you can bring up a quick menu at the bottom. A lot of people are like, well, Maddie, there's a quick menu on the left in PS4. This one's like different though. Like the stuff that they bring up, like it brings up the help menu for the game in particular. You can manage your party it's like I said, a quick menu, and then there's like the home menu. So it's almost like that situation you have maybe on your PC where you have a folder within a folder within a folder.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And that can get cloggy pretty quickly. So I've had a little bit of issue getting around and even finding stuff at times. I think I was looking for messages, and now it doesn't say like friends list. It says like game center. and then you click on your friend's name, and then you click view messages. Like, we were testing that out. So it was actually pretty tough to learn all this. Obviously, as you familiarize yourself with the new setup, that'll fade away. But right now, it's an adjustment. And I remember fighting Cowboy when he came on our show a while ago. He kind of mentioned where you tab through the tutorials in games sometimes. You're like, I got this. Like, I'm familiar with this. I realized ever since he mentioned that, sometimes I have those moments. I'm like, it's the UI. Like, what's the big deal? Not that they were walking you through everything, but I was just very caught off guard that I was confused by some of its layout. Not in a bad way, just finding my way around was tough at times. But I do like how they have a game section and a media section. I think that's really big. I hated how on PS4 you would have like Disney Plus buried in 2 folders, and the apps would load like crap and run like crap, especially Funimation. Funimation's PS4 app is terrible. So I'm hoping that those experiences are updated, but having them sectioned off into their own thing was really important. So I like that. And I know someone brought it up earlier. I think it was Dustin. The store, though, is beautiful. Love the new store. But I guess that does it for most things with the console, unless I'm forgetting anything. We went over the controller, the user experience.
I didn't actually go on the user experience. Now that I think about it.
Apologies.
But no, that's all right. But I would say I agree with, like, I'm a mix of you two. So I don't like top bar in one section, bottom bar in another section, and then the cards I feel are just another menu for a game. And if you have a third-party game, is the third party going to put their menu in? Are they going to put their information in the normal menu or in the cards? And you're going to have all these weird things, especially with some third-party games. I could see it being sort of a big deal. Cards could be very cool on the PS5, but at the same time, I think some companies are probably not going to want to put stuff there that could definitely help somebody on an Xbox. And so you're definitely going to have this weird thing where you have 3 menus now, and that could certainly cause an issue. Also, it dawned on me, you were talking about finding things. I just realized one thing that I find weird is everything is like getting there from 4 different ways on the PlayStation, depending on which of the multiple menus you're in. And I was trying to just find my download because this morning I woke up yesterday. I came in and the new PS5 for some reason stopped all my downloads and errored out on all my downloads. I could tell it did because it said it did, but I couldn't find those errors. No matter where I went, I was like, where the fuck are the errors? To get to the errors that I needed, I had to go into the game, open the cards, or open the bottom tab, go down, and go there to find them. So it was like, and I'm sure there was a way to get them, by the way, by going into the normal settings up in the top right. But I think that what happens is they've tried to add so many menus and back and forth that it can just be a little bit like, it's almost like it's half of one or half of the other. Which way should I go? And you have to decide for just a second. It's like, oh, I'll just go upright this time, or I'll just use the card system or the bottom bar. But other than that, I mean, I think it's good. I love that they add HDMI. A lot of people won't know, this is nerdy. I love that they added an HDI signal adjustment, because HDMI has handshake issues with the signal. So you plug 2 in and they just won't talk.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Funny enough, we just talked about this. So the ability to go into the PlayStation and just adjust it a little bit up and down is pretty cool, because you might get a system where it's just not reading the power output in the HDMI cable. And the ability to adjust it as a person will not be used by 90% of people, but the 10% that do need it will be able to go in there and adjust that. That was a huge. It sounds small, but that for somebody like me, that's actually huge. Plugging it into different recording devices can be a bitch.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. One thing that happened was my HDMI that came with my PS5 is busted. Doesn't work. So I am using my Series X HDMI for both. Just going between the 2 systems. So what I do is just unplug it from the back, and I'll plug it into my PS5, like when I'm recording stuff. For those who are wondering a little bit of the backstory there, I was messaging Karak and Fighting Cowboy because what was happening was my Xbox was saying my TV doesn't support 4K, even though it's a 4K TV. And like everything I did just was not working. And then all of a sudden it worked. And that happened last night too. I was trying to set up recording. And that's how I found out my HDMI was busted. And I thought at first it was the Elgato not transferring it. I did a cold startup on my computer. I even went to the length of unplugging the Elgato, plugging it back in, even though it's put directly into your motherboard, switched cables, and then just all of a sudden it works. And it worked today fine. and like presumably it's just gonna work. Like this next generation, I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, this has just been hell. Like I've just been learning the awful amount of technological issues. What is that?
Fucking green screen. You can't see it. It's a booster for HDMI. I'll send you a link. They're $5, and they amplify the signal, and so that the next device picks it up better. And so, for example, an Elgato takes a little bit of charge, doesn't give any. And so sometimes it'll just be like, nah, I'm not seeing nothing. And so something like this with another small HDMI cable at the other end can actually net you connections that are far, they have a lot more signal strength. And you usually won't have those issues. I'll send you a link for it.
Yeah, go ahead. So would I need, like, say, because right now I have it's an 8K wire, which I don't need 8K, but it can obviously transmit a 4K image. But I have 8K going to my TV. Would I just connect it to that booster and then connect another 4K cable or whatever?
Yeah, but the other cable can be as short and should probably be as short as humanly possible anyway to give you the best strength. So it's like this plus a super short, connection cable. And dude, they work wonders for me. Just absolute wonders.
That'd be great then. I think that's half my problem. Because I was reading on Elgato's website and they're like, we don't recommend cables above 6 feet long. And I have a 6.5 foot cable. And I'm like,
and you're just looking going, who really only has, content creator. I'll just say that. Most content creators, 6 foot cable is not going to be enough. Maybe a normal consumer just sitting in there, in a receptacle somewhere.
Yeah.
Wild shit. Before we move on, Maddie, because I got a feeling, were you about to move on to Xbox?
You felt me correctly, yeah.
Oh, okay. Real quick though, we talked very briefly about backwards compatibility. Either one of you boot up Ghost of Tsushima on PS5?
I thought about it, but I booted up Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Oh, Maddie, no.
What the fuck's that all about?
We're moving on. Okay, we're just gonna forget that he said that. Yeah. Listen, dude, I could not believe it looks so fucking good. Like
it's so much better, isn't it?
It almost made me feel like, wow, maybe this was like, in a way, it feels like it should have been a PS5 game all along. Like it just like looks flawless, and the performance is like amazing. Which I don't know, and it's not a PS5 app; it's still a PS4. I didn't have to do any kind of weird upgrade shit. So like, my only hope is that like, man, hopefully it's easy for developers to just like do low key updates in order to up the resolution and up the frame rate, depending on, of course, if the game logic isn't tied to certain things. But yeah, Maddie, make sure you do that because it's really impressive.
I haven't installed. It's funny. The reason I had Kakarot installed too is because I was playing that Card Warriors game I shouted out a couple weeks ago. And when I started it up, I was originally going to do it as a joke to show people the card game and be like, oh, look, it runs at 4K. Funny. But I was like, let me actually be serious for a second and see how the base game works. And it actually runs in 60 FPS now.
Was it just like a shitty unlocked, like all over the place before?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
See, and that's one of the problems I think we're all going to run into, by the way. Mm-hmm. Like if they were shitty or low res or unlocked, then you're probably in so much better shape. But a lot of games were locked and or capped, which capped is fine, but some were capped at 30. I know Microsoft has some software that they're trying out that injects into those engines, but that's the one thing I'm nervous about is like, some of the games, Dragon's Dogma, I don't think it went to 60. Like I played it last night and I'm like, I didn't fucking drag the software and start using counters and stuff, but it didn't feel 60, which sucks because that game didn't have the best frame rate originally. It never has. So now it's probably locked at 30, but I would love to have played that at 60. I think some of my titles in particular won't see that, which that's sort of depressing.
Well, that's what's cool is I think a lot of companies are realizing a little tweaking can give a game a new lease on life. So I think we're going to start seeing some... Like, I saw Neo is going to have the whole collection, the DLC, do 4K and 60 FPS, or 120 FPS, actually. Yeah, 120, sorry, because you can run the base game already at 60. So, yeah, to see that, I'm pumped about that update, because I love Neo 2. It's one of my games of the year, and I want to go and play the DLC. So now, got a bonus reason to do that. So I think we're going to see a lot of companies dip back. You could even see, because that's the thing, people love the surprise of... think of like a KOTOR 2 where it just got that random update one day where they said like, hey, it looks a lot better now and we got mods and achievements. I think we're going to see more of that now because it's a low resource kind of boost to the game's life. So that'll be really cool over time. Now, gentlemen, do I have permission to move on to the Series X? I don't want to rush it.
No, of course. Oh.
No.
I got to mention one other thing, two things.
There we go.
That
That's
I'm
why I asked,
incredibly
ladies and gentlemen.
unhappy, and I appreciate it. Incredibly unhappy about with this fucking thing. It doesn't do 1440p, which I didn't think I was going to care about until I did Yakuza at 1440p, and I'm like, oh damn, that is awesome. And it does not have variable refresh, which they have to fix. They said at some point they have their own or whatever. I don't care how they do it. That needs to be in because a lot of TVs are starting to add it, and those two things are huge. And Valhalla is not a reason. They should have fixed Valhalla. It's the developer's fault. But the screen tearing in Valhalla is so bad.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
I was testing
guys,
it out yesterday.
screen tearing feels like something I remember from 3rd grade. It's been so long ago that I had screen tearing that when I saw it, my brain was like, what is this? And then I was like, oh, it's 2 fucking frames in the same, like, what's happening with this thing? So, guys, Sony, that's the one thing they need to do. And I know people are like, oh, well, they said they'd add it. The fact is that day one, I spend $500. I want it in there. We already have a game that could have benefited. I want that benefit. So those 2 things. I'm really crossing my fingers they get in.
Yeah. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there is green. There is the Xbox Series X. Gentlemen, we all have an Xbox Series X. And I got to ask, what are you thinking of the console that delivered no games, really, at launch? When I say no games, by the way, I'm talking on... Wait, Falconeer?
Falconeer is exclusive. It's the only one.
There we go. One exclusive title.
One.
Not on the level of a Demon's Souls remake or Miles Morales, of course. But we have Game Pass. Overall, what was your experience with the system?
Isn't Tetris Effect also an exclusive?
Oh,
technically,
it is. Yeah. Well,
I was gonna say that's the only one.
All right, guys. Falcon,
yeah.
Tetris Effect. Okay, you guys are cool.
No,
it's great.
We should remove both those because Miles also isn't exclusive either. So,
right.
if we're talking about just fucking, there's only like 2 for one of them and 1 for the other. There's almost nothing fully exclusive. It's weird.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Man.
I think overall I'm really happy with it. I think it's it feels farther along.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't like the HUD or the UI, but I don't like Sony's. But I don't love that UI. It's faster, which is awesome, way faster. But it feels farther along in almost all ways with its support and just how you can do things. It's also got crazy stuff like HDR calibration internally. Now that might sound dumb to some people, but do you know how useful that actually is? Like if you're trying to figure something out, like your color spectrums or stuff, I was never able to find it on PS5, but the Xbox, you just press a button and you can run through all your different settings and stuff like that. Hopefully that's on PS5 at some point.
I think it has it on PS5.
Oh, because I was just in there asking people and I couldn't find it anywhere.
I'm trying to remember.
My PS5, I meant to say this earlier. Do you guys have this? Every time I boot it up, it tells me to set my HDR brightness. It makes me go through the 3 steps. Yeah. Yeah, every time.
We can talk about that shit later, dude. I would turn rest mode off.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I'm just telling you. But anyway, yeah, overall, like it's the system for me because of Game Pass, because there are so many games, and then playing some of their old ones, like Forza and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Dustin, what do you think?
Surprisingly, Karak and I are a little flip-flop because I've been having more issues, not that they're that bad, with the Series X. And none of them are like, I don't want it to sound like, I don't hate it. It's just I have had more issues, but I've also had more time with the Series X, technically, by a few days. Overall, though, it's been pretty fine. Again, it's just one of those, like, if you're the type of gamer you play the games where they're best on their either exclusive console or I guess, you play where the game is best on each console. Right now, the Series X is not super exciting for me personally, and that kind of comes to what you were saying, Maddie, is that it's like the games that I was booting up were just like optimized games that I've already checked out before. So unless you're, playing Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty, there's not really a lot of new things to be really excited for. Is that accurate? Am I not thinking of something?
Well, the only thing I would say is ray tracing seems to be definitely farther along on the third-party titles.
Right.
Because Legion is ray traced even on the Xbox S, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like that is mind blowing to see that. But no, I mean,
they
overall, I would
Gears pretty hard, and I think Halo's getting an
yeah,
update.
Gears at 120, which is fucking insane. But
Dude,
no, I mean, no, I think that's pretty accurate what you said.
Ori, the new Ori
though,
at 4K 120 is insane. And also,
awesome.
What's funny is they also have a mode for 6K downsampled at 60. And I was when I had saw that announced, I was like, there's no way you're going to be able to really see that much of a difference at that type of resolution. But you can. It is like a little bit sharper. I wouldn't use that mode personally because the 120 is just like amazingly smooth. But you can tell a difference on a 4K display like that.
Yeah.
Some other weird like issues, like I had 2 different games, Tetris Effect, and I can't remember what the other game is that just like hard crashed on me.
Call of Duty? Because I have heard Call of Duty's crashing systems.
No.
Everywhere. No? Okay.
It was I think it was No Man's Sky, which that also crashed on my PS5. So that might be a game problem.
Yeah.
So here's another weird thing, and I wanted to ask you, Karak, about this. And I don't know if it's an HDMI 2.1 thing. When I boot up a game or close a game on my Series X, there is a brief flash of like partial static on the screen.
Completely normal, and I hate it. Do you know why I hate it? Because when I'm recording and I'm trying to switch games, it'll pop and say there's no signal.
Right.
And that is them checking and using the system to check what your output is again and then matching it. And yeah, I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
It sounds so dumb, but I agree with you. It was a bitch to try to figure out how to remove that from some things I wanted to do. Yeah, it definitely does.
There's there's something slightly weird going on with the handshake too, because this only happened one time, but I had to go and unplug the HDMI from the Series X and plug it back in order to get signal. And I'm just running the cable that came with it. Like it's not like an extra long cable or anything like that, but I had to, manually add it and, remove it in order to get it to work. So other than that, though, I mean, I will say that I think that the hardware is impressive. Like Gears 5 looked really awesome at the 4K 60. I didn't try the multiplayer at the high refresh rate. Tetris Effect, which I have a lot of experience seeing what that looked like on last gen, and so the new version looks really fantastic at 4K, and the multiplayer modes are really awesome. Other than that, though, yeah, I mean, it's just like it's what everyone's already kind of said, is that just a way better, faster, Xbox. It's more of the same, but just in a way better package.
And the thing that bothers me is you're talking about 120, and I only have one system in my entire house that does 120. And guess what? Same system doesn't do HDR. Because HDR and 120 are not synonymous with working at fucking all. Dude. And so I am bothered because what you said, 6K, 60, great. That's and I saw it. That is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And I played the Xbox S version, which is 1440p. Fucking awesome looking. But I can't go above. I have one system that does 120. And to me, I feel like not FOMO, but a little bit, Because it's like I hear you talk about it. I'm like, well, I have to move if I want to play that. And then if I do 120, I can't do HDR. So, yeah. Or real HDR. I think that one has the fake, really low, fake HDR, really. But, that sort of sucks. I guess TVs need to step forward, right? TVs need some pretty big improvements to sort of catch up with what we're seeing on these things.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think I saw that, I think the entry level TV that has HDMI 2.1 that can do 4K 120 HDR, I think is like $900.
It is.
So,
as someone who just bought one,
especially if it's real HDR and real 120, Dustin.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll try to fake that shit and say HDR and it's like 400 nits, which is not. You know what I mean? So,
which that's I have the LG C9, which is
C9.
Yeah, which it was very expensive when I bought it. It's definitely a premium TV. Seeing that it's at $900 though, I mean, it's still very expensive. It's not horrible, but yeah, I think hopefully I would think in the next 2 years or less, throughout the next 2 years, we're going to start to see more and more budget-friendly TVs. The question is just, the quality.
Yeah.
You got to look beyond just the spec sheet of 4K 120 HDMI.
Right. Yep.
Because it's a lot more than that as well.
It's funny. My TV I got, it's a Sony X900H, and I really like it a lot.
That's a good one too. A lot of people like it.
That's probably the best for those who are looking for a TV to take advantage of everything. From my research, this is probably one of the best price points you can get one at that has all the bells and whistles, and you're not really sacrificing much with it. But I will say the only thing about this thing is really Sony. It's not a TV issue. Is the ancient updating process. So you can have automatic internet updates. But let's say you're like me and you're like, I want 120 FPS. You have to take a thumb drive, download the update file, unzip it, put it on a thumb drive, plug it in your TV. I spent like a fucking hour trying to figure this thing out because the file they're having you download, I think something's fucked up with it because it's not extracting what they're saying it is. I looked at like 4 different video tutorials at the same time. YouTube went down. It was a fucking pain in the ass, man. I'm waiting until the update comes out at this point. Whatever that is, just to download, because that's the only issue I have with this TV. But as a TV, for those who are listening and looking, because ever since I said on the show a couple weeks ago, like I'm upgrading my setup, and I'm moving on from 1080p after all this time, which has been incredible, by the way. I feel like such a fucking idiot, but I gotta say, man, it has been insane. But this is the TV I would suggest. Outside of the updating, it is phenomenal. And pretty price friendly in the scheme of things.
Sony in 2020 released a smart TV that cannot update its firmware on its own.
Right.
It can. It just they stagger the release. You can get like how backwards is that?
So it's okay.
You can get it immediately if you download it online and put it on a thumb drive, but you have to wait for the automatic update. And I'm like, why isn't that reverse?
That is not uncommon. Unfortunately, my old Samsung TV
not
did that.
Really uncommon. Yeah. I have a Samsung, and it does do wireless, but it takes forever. That's another. Even though I have super fast internet on it, if I do a network test, I don't know. They're TVs. They're I didn't realize there were like malware for TVs too. But like I was talking to a friend who actually works for a piracy company, not anti-piracy. Sorry, he's not hacking shit.
Yeah.
And he was in our Discord, and I was like, TVs, and he's like, dude, it's real. People do not realize what you can do with a TV's Wi-Fi signal, because you can use it to hopscotch onto other shit. And it was crazy what he was describing. He's like, we've seen stuff we haven't even talked to the力world about, because if we do, we'll give them ideas. Like there's some crazy shit people have done out there. Wow. So I think TVs, it's unfortunate we have to talk about TVs as seeing these improvements too. Because HDR, you can't explain to somebody. Try to tell somebody HDR. It's brighter and it's more colorful. And they're like, dude, is it faster? And can I see less polygons? Like, people don't think that way. Until you see HDR, you don't know. It's like the PlayStation 5. You don't know what it is until you see it. And then once you see it, you're like, oh, I get it. So
right.
That's one of the biggest issues, I think, with HDR in particular.
Well, boys, I have to take my leave now.
Oh, you're already okay. You're doing
pretty much
trigger symbols right now.
Yeah, I have to I want to make sure I eat something so I'm not starving.
Oh, gotcha.
and prepare and stuff. So,
of course,
my final words will be: enjoy your next gen consoles. Astro's Playroom Game of the Year 2020.
Woo,
just kidding.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, dude, wait, we gotta talk. What?
Here's what I will say. I will say about Astro's Playroom.
You do like it.
I like it, and a game has not made me smile that much.
Oh, that's cool.
In many years, just from it's very cute. It's very fun. It was very heartwarming.
Insanely energetic.
Yes, they did not include the PlayStation TV in it as an Easter egg, and so.
Dude, I lost my mind when they had a Vita cartridge as a collectible. I was like,
yeah.
Fuck yeah. Shit's awesome, man. Yeah, it's a great game.
Dude, you sound like a dude who gets an email from an ex 6 years later and thinks you're going to get back together. You and that Vita.
Wow.
Fuck. God damn. Sorry, had to say it.
You're not wrong. He's
so
dude,
clutchy.
rip me apart.
He's like,
rip me apart.
They said something about there's a V in this game. It must mean Vita. Like,
yes.
Jesus, dude.
Yes.
Anyway, have a good one, Dustin.
Cool. See you guys.
Yeah. Take it easy, man. All right, Karak, you're stuck with me. Do we have more to say on the Series X?
Well, no, I was going to ask you because you did. I know you did the review, so people here watched it. But because because I know you haven't been incredibly hot on like versus a PlayStation because of the exclusives, but now that you are able to play some of the older ones, is there any particular ones that maybe you didn't dive onto, especially when you didn't have the best PC? Is there any older? Is it like Gears maybe, or maybe not a Forza, but is there something there that you were thinking of, or are you just gonna sort of just piecemeal it out, and if you find a game, you find a game?
Yeah, I've been just like sifting through Game Pass, honestly. I'm trying to think if anything's really stuck, because what I did was I sort of went on like a downloading spree. Is that what you're asking, right? Like just how I
yeah, it's like anything that's caught your eye or that you want to check out as an improvement.
Let's see here. See, the thing is, and I'm aware of this, and I'm being transparent about it with my audience, is that since I'm moving to 4K and HDR, everything looks better right now, right?
Oh,
just
true.
because my overall image quality is better. I mean, you're talking to someone who gamed on like 480 until 2008, I think. Like, I was using the yellow cables and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess I have a high tolerance for bad video quality is what I've learned. But yeah, everything does look better now, but I've tried to separate that from the image versus, how a game runs, how it feels. One game that I did not expect to feel as great as it did was SSX. Going back to that,
interesting.
That is a phenomenal game. It just runs steady now. I remember it chugged a little bit on the 360 at times, but now it's very steady on the Series X. And it has a better feel to it. Like, you have a little more control over it, and that's one thing I noticed continuously by going back to some of these games. I even fired up KOTOR. I fired it up as a joke, but I mean, wow, it looks way better upscaled than I expected. As someone who's played it on PC a lot, granted, on sometimes PC they'll stretch your image, whereas on the Xbox it keeps the black bars for those who don't know. But it looks fantastic there. Of course, it's going to run in 60 FPS. I played Fusion Frenzy even, and the color really popped for that. So it was just very impressive across the board as I just sifted from title to title to title. I played Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. That had a lot of pop. I got to say, everything to me has been looking better. What I've noticed more than anything is a lot of the older games are just steady now. They're steady. It's hard to imagine a PS4 game or an Xbox game in this case is really going to chug here. And that's one thing that I've really liked a lot about the system is I think it accidentally almost adds value to Game Pass because you're already adding the second lease on life to these games through it running better, looking better, and then you've got this huge library that you can just see all there is to offer. I went on a downloading spree. I got Master Chief Collection. I got Dead Space, Indivisible. Yeah, like I was just,
what about Medal of
EA
Honor? I get that right now while we're talking.
Yeah, I tested out Medal of Honor Airborne. That looked sharper. That looked
the thing,
like noticeably sharper.
Is it
really
so?
Weird.
I was talking about my experience with Medal of Honor Airborne on the Xbox was bad because of the latency, but Xbox has that new latency fix feature, and I know that for some games they were saying it was like 20 or 30 milliseconds quicker. Did you notice anything, or did you really? You probably didn't test it that much, right?
I didn't test it hardcore, but I'll say this much is just from like entering a bunch of combat skirmishes. I want to say it's responsive in ADS, but its controls are so. People thought Resident Evil was tanky with Karak.
Oh yeah,
because you can't when you aim, you wiggle around. I'm so used to in Call of Duty, while you're aiming, your fingers locked in whatever direction you were already heading in because you're focused on the gunfight now. I'm not going to stop moving and then shoot or anything like that. That's weird. In Airborne, when you aim in, it's all like leaning. So
okay,
it felt control-wise terrible, but the game looked really sharp, like really sharp. I saw a lot of comments pouring in on my Series X review saying how great the game looked. I agree with that entirely. And in terms of its responsiveness, aiming down sights, yeah, there was a less of a delay there for sure.
Okay, cool.
Because I remember that having kind of like a you could feel the motion, and that's kind of one of its charms, but it feels a lot more responsive.
Okay, cool.
Which is good.
Cool.
Yeah, you can definitely see something there. We didn't talk much about the controller for the Series X. We kind of mentioned it in passing when it came to the PlayStation 5, actually. But what do you think of the Series X controller? Because for me, of the two, when I'm holding them, I like Series X a little bit more personally. Obviously, functionality, I think DualSense has more potential, but holding a controller and playing with it, I really like the Series X, but I don't know if I'm alone on that.
No, I would agree. So I like the X barely better. I do like slightly clickier, admit it, and I think their D-pad improvements they've continued to do, because for whatever reason they've sort of led the charge on improving the D-pad. So
They have, haven't they?
yeah, you just hear about it a lot where people are like, oh, like professional gamers will be like, oh, if you're gonna play, this D-pad's better, blah blah blah. So yeah, I would say I like it, dude. The share button though, come on. I mean, I bitched about this in my review. I'm like, why? Why did you put this button there? I could have.
Yeah. Right
in the
middle,
original,
right?
yeah, and in the original Xbox, Matty, you can just double tap the power button and the same menu would pop up. So to me, share is not being used at all, where there's other things they could do. It wouldn't be crazy, but also their shareability is terrible compared to the PS4 or PS5. The PS5 saves 1 hour. Now, admittedly, multiple engineers have actually done little posts on Twitter about that, stating that that is a incredible misuse of the NVMe's memory, because they can only do a certain number of writes before they fail. And if you have that on repeating and cycling through 1 hour, like if a gamer left it on, you actually could wear out an NVMe quicker or more quickly than you would want it. And multiple engineers have been like, whoa, that seems weird to have a rollback that long. But I would have liked it longer than the Xboxes, which is like, I think I could only get it to go, is it 5 minutes or something? Like, I don't.
So yeah, that's too short. I was gonna say 15 minutes seems like the good.
I think there might be a 15, but I think it's 720p, Matty, and 720p is like, why would you? That's a postage stamp.
Yeah,
so
come on.
yeah, I would say, but their battery beats the PS5's. I've gone through 2 batteries on the PS5 in the time it was like other people were playing the Xbox for like 3 days. Still weren't, still no issues. The controller and the battery is probably always going to win on the Xbox. The thing's just insane. I don't know what magic they're using.
It just doesn't die. Yeah, it's wild.
It doesn't.
It really is. It's so impressive too. Yeah, one thing I really liked about the Xbox controller, and I pointed it out to people, is I showed it in my video, is that the way it supports your hand, it seems like such a non-issue, but especially when going back to PS4, messing around with that, and I aggravated my thumb last week, and the PS4 was actually like fucking me up. Like I couldn't play much.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it would actually hurt. But when I started playing the Series X, it supported my hand enough where I could play it. And a couple of people messaged me and said, like, hey, like, thank you for saying this, because I've been having the same issue. So it's one thing I appreciated it. And it's got to be intentional, because I was holding the controller and I was looking at like where the support sort of ends before your thumb connects to the thumbstick, and it rides up really high. So you're not just like on the PS4, you're kind of floating in the air like this, and and like wiggling around, and you're almost stretching it. But I've realized I really like the offset analog stick a little bit more. That's one thing I've learned entering this generation. I was always unsure, but I'm pretty convinced now I like offset. It just feels a lot better.
I definitely like offset better. I would agree with all the thing about the ergonomics. I think the PS5 though, man, dude, is so much better. Like, ergonomics wise, it may not be exactly the Xbox when it comes to like comfort, but it's so close that it's like that's a kudo to them. Because I feel that sometimes Sony digs their heels in and is like, we're not changing it because we're Sony, and it's like, dude, you really need to change some shit, and they did, and it's like, thank you, because that's a huge step up, and I think both of them are really close this year, which is awesome that we're seeing that.
For sure. Yeah, it's so true, right? They've done that DualSense thing where like you've had 2 pegs attached to a rectangle, and they're like, this is our controller, and they just wouldn't move beyond that. So yeah, it's good that they've embraced something a little bit fatter. It's still, to me, it looks like a PlayStation controller, so hopefully they realize that and just keep moving on with it. Shall we talk about games, good sir?
Yeah, let's do it. A lot.
Right. Yeah, a lot of games. So I also added, by the way, Assassin's Creed Valhalla to this list, because I don't know how I left that out, but definitely one I would like to talk about. Demon's Souls Remake is the first on the list, though. So this is a remake by Blue Point Games from the PlayStation 3 Classic that released in 2009. It can run in 60 FPS, or you can have a 4K mode that runs at 30. overall, it is relatively the same game that we played with a couple of quality of life updates, a new character creator, a photo mode's been added. Of course, what I mentioned with the performance mode, it runs a lot better. Even in that performance mode, it looks incredible in so many instances. I've played about, I think, a total of 5 hours now of this game between the last 2 nights. So how far are you into this game, if at all? And have you enjoyed it?
Less than, probably the same amount of time, but probably less than you, because I was fucking around at the starting, looking at graphics and all that kind of stuff versus playing. But yeah, I would agree with all that you say. Well, first of all, it's one of the better looking of the next-gen titles, because I feel that even like Godfall or whatever, like there's some bloom in Godfall. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Ooh. And there's some times where it looks good, but it doesn't do whatever I want it to do. And I think Dark Souls or Demon Souls, unfortunately, as a remake, it may not be as stunning as if it was an original IP, but I think it's probably one of the best looking ones. And I've liked it, man. You were right though. There's a couple quality of life fixes, but people should be prepared. If you came in at like Dark Souls 3 or 2 and you play this, it's a chunky bitch. You can be like, well, this doesn't feel, what's happening? It doesn't feel exactly like I expected. And that's because they did not absolutely change everything. Like there's some stuff that feels pretty ancient about it for sure. And there's no easy mode. So be prepared. I know a lot of people are like, oh man, this looks awesome. I'm going to jump right in. And they've never played a Dark Souls or Demon Souls.
About that. Yeah, it's still tough. And it's a good thing to mention, Dark Souls 3, the later Souls game, maybe Bloodborne or Sekiro. If you're coming from those and Demon Souls is your first time, just be prepared for the game to really enforce backstabbing a lot.
True. That's absolutely true.
Just lots of hugging your shield, circling the enemy, and trying to look for the backstab. I will say this is the first Souls game I can think of right now that it actually wants you to parry sometimes, or it's actually a good idea to parry enemies. I always felt like parrying in the other Souls games was, hey, you're actually really good, and you're so good, you don't need to go in and stab them. You don't need to go behind them and backstab them. You could just knock their shit away and stab them right in the chest. Which does bring me to one of my favorite new additions. They changed a lot of the animations for the weapons in this game, from the backstabs to the parry takedowns, and oh my god, I don't know if you've seen the unarmed takedowns, but all right. So I was streaming earlier today, and dude, I was like fucking Mike Tyson. Like when you do a backstab, you hit him 3 times in the fucking liver. Like it's amazing. It is insane. And if you do a parry, you'll actually just like mess them up right in the chest. Like you just chest punch them. It's insane, dude. I like someone just looked at martial arts and went diaphragm. Just like fucking just hit them. That's right awesome. There. It's so incredible, man. So the new animations are there, but yeah, overall it's the same thing. Same bosses. Some bosses are very, very easy. Like the opening boss, the Phalanx. Tower Knight wasn't too tough. I fought this thing called like the Adjunctator or something like that. Very easy bosses. They're more like combat puzzles, at least in the early game. I can't think of many bosses right now off the rip, and this is one of my first times going into the game and getting this far, where there are bosses that involve like the rolling, the patterns that you kind of started to learn with Dark Souls. Have you experienced any of that so far? Because I don't know. Have you played the original at all?
I did, and the original is what caused me to be so vehemently against Dark Souls and Demon Souls for years. I hated this game. I fucking hated every minute of it because, really? Like, as somebody who swings swords in real life and practices with them, I can tell you half of those don't look real or didn't at the time. And people were saying it was realistic, so I jumped into it expecting realistic, and not Kingdom Come Deliverance. Realistic. I got Dark Souls, or Demon Souls. And I was just like, this fucking makes no sense, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really like any. And then then went into like, the Dark Souls, and 2 and 3 in particular, I think improved on some stuff I liked. But funny enough, all that stuff you mentioned, another person I play games with mentioned every one of those same exact things, including the very, very specific bit about the bosses. They were like, dude, they are not, you will die if you just try to like even the parry and smash stuff. It's like, if you don't, they're a puzzle, you have to finish it like a puzzle. You have to understand that they're like a puzzle. And So they can feel easy if you know their puzzle, which I think is pretty cool. But I haven't got to the point where that's been actually difficult. I killed the first dude. I don't remember his fucking name. Big giant dude. Well, they're all big giant dudes. And I like the control. I think I pretty much like every part about this, but parts that don't get mentioned is that I think it's probably the best audio on the PlayStation 5.
Oh yeah, I was gonna
So
say
I use
that.
I use the 3D audio headset Sony gave me, and then my own. And alert to people: if you have a PlayStation 5 and you use HDMI for your audio, you can't do 3D audio of any kind for reasons unknown. They've removed that. You can only get that through the microphone or a DAC, digital analog from the front of the PlayStation 5. So I played with the headset for a while, and the 3D audio is great in that. The audio, I mean, it still sounds good on HDMI. It's just nowhere near as, high fidelity in that same route. And great audio, really atmospheric. They leveled some stuff so you could hear more of the environment, which I thought was great. So overall, really good. I mean, it's Blue Point, right? That's another thing. Have they done a bad game ever? I don't think they've done a bad game, right? Yeah.
No,
so
they've just remade games exceptionally rather.
Exceptionally well, yeah. Which I think is why the rumor, I don't know if you saw it this morning, but the rumor once again is like Sony will be buying. It's like they already own them technically. I mean, in a way, they don't work for anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a smart get for them, because I would like to see, when you see them remaking games like Shadow of the Colossus, remaking Demon Souls, I mean, you got to imagine that at some point they want to be let off the leash and make their own.
Yeah, true. That's for sure true. Yeah.
And I'd be curious to see what they would make, right? Because we don't really see. I could be wrong on this. I don't remember the last time we've seen like a dedicated remaster studio develop almost a pedigree, like a reputation, and then like a reputation so strong that they could go off and do their own thing. And what would that even look like? Is the major question.
That would be so cool to see. That would be because I do wonder sometimes, if they want to do other, platforms, including PC and stuff. I just think, because I think Demon Souls is PC as well, isn't it? Later, is Demon Souls?
They had a trailer when State of Play
that
finished.
Thing, yeah.
And they had PC at the end, and they removed the trailer and uploaded a new one. My guess is that it might be a temp exclusive for a year or something like that. Because we saw, of course, Horizon come to PC as a little bit of a test, I would say. And although that test didn't work out all that well, I still think they're open to it. I don't know. It's just what makes no sense is how that's like the only PlayStation exclusive game currently, right? And it's a remake. I don't know. Something about that just is fishy to me, where I feel like there's another version lying out there somewhere. Like if I were PlayStation, I would want to make Miles Morales the PlayStation 5 exclusive game, just to push the unit, right? It seems fishy that Demon Souls remake of all games is like, hey, we need to do this on only PS5. It's not. Let's be real. It's a fucking difficult ass game. Like, I don't think it's gonna sell tons and tons and tons of copies in the same sense that maybe a Miles Morales would.
Look at Valhalla, a game I didn't love, and it's fucking doing gangbusters, Matty.
Oh yeah,
gangbusters.
Yeah, it's like what is it? Like 2 times the amount of players than Odyssey at launch. That's insane. That's
insanity, and I don't mean insanity in a bad way. I mean that's an insane number because Odyssey did incredibly well. So it's just like, I agree with you. It's a weird title for PlayStation to lead with, but also sort of akin to their hardcore fan base. It's like you can only get this here. This is our game. Even though it's a remake. So. It makes sense. I was just going to say, just don't ignore 3D audio. If you get a chance, the audio through this controller is about 10 times better than through the DualSense. I don't know what they did, and I don't have any specs on that, but I can tell you the moment you plug a headset into the DualSense versus the PlayStation 4 controller, the codec they're using is way better. Way better. So just be aware of that. Oh, dude. It's listenable, which I'm going to tell you, man, I would play on the PS4 and I'd be like, damn, this is you know, you could hear the little bitty sounds in compression. Nothing that I could hear on this one.
You mentioned earlier about 3D audio. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. And of course, also for anyone listening, you mentioned how if you're hooked up via HDMI, you can't get 3D audio. How does that work exactly? Like, what is... So how do you listen? Just how do you listen to 3D audio?
So 3D audio that they run can only be heard through the controller and using the microphone thing or a DAC.
Any headphones can just
any headphones.
Okay.
Any headphones whatsoever. And then the front of the PlayStation has a USB, and if you have a DAC, a digital analog converter, that's what this little thing is. Very cheap if you want to do that. You plug it in, and it will also work. For whatever reason, Sony has turned it off on HDMI completely. The problem with that is that Sony also refuses to pay the licenses for other 3D technology, like Atmos. So the Xbox has a bunch of options. Sony's got zero. Zero, or maybe one. Yeah, so if you plug this into HDMI, if you have a receiver that's 5.1, the receiver is faking the 5.1 because the source is not 5.1. It's just 2. It's speakers. And then your receiver tries to guess where everything should be. What you really want is the output being 5.1 into a 5.1, right?
Right.
And so they'll turn it on, or they say they will. But right now, if you want to hear the best audio on your PlayStation, use a DAC or use the headset, any headset with the controller.
Okay. So then I was hearing it. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, because I feel like this generation, a lot of people are going to think they're seeing things or think they're hearing things. Yeah, and I'm not going to walk in and obviously act like I'm an expert. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay.
Yeah. And just so anybody watching knows, that is your microphone, or your headset. So any normal headset, and then a DAC has to have a USB, and it plugs into the front, and then it has a normal, you can't see them, but it's got a microphone and headset plugs just like the controller. And what that does is it takes the digital signal and turns it to a wired signal, and then you plug your headset in just like normal. And the cool thing is, all the PlayStation 5 requires is a DAC. It doesn't have to be a good one. So, strangely enough, you can get what would be considered not the best DAC, like $19. As long as it's got a fairly clean signal, then all that 3D audio will get into whatever headphones you plug into that. So it's sort of cool in a bad way. Like, it's a cool workaround. It's not a good reason for having one, but it's a very cool workaround.
Is that an Elgato thing too? Because I feel like they have something for everything.
Dude, oh, you mean is there an Elgato?
The one that you were holding.
No, this is creative. I thought
I saw Elgato on it.
I don't think Elgato has a DAC, but pretty much, dude, there are some. I mean, it's crazy because cell phones are a big deal right now with USB-C DACs. So what they'll do is, that's what this is. It's a little USB-C, and it's a little wire, and the Switch has a ton of these. You plug it in, and all it's really doing is it's just got one chip that's a very cheap chip that converts it directly into your plug-in signal, and sometimes amplifies it by a couple dBs so it can call itself an amplifier. And that's one cool thing about this. It doesn't cost a lot if that's what you want to do. Like, if you don't want to run it off. Because remember, plugging it into your controller will burn out the controller's battery far faster than if there's nothing. Just like more rumble, because you're using more energy.
Right. Yeah, man. So for those who are wondering, I give Demon's Souls Remake a pretty ringing endorsement, because while it is a standard remake, it's not one in the vein of, say, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I use that as an example a lot, where I feel like that's a kind of a game changer remake. Even if it wasn't the best game, I think it kind of defined what actually a remake could be considered by a lot of people, especially given its popularity. You're not going to get that with Demon's Souls Remake. It's more like a from the ground up, and it uses its original game code. So enemy pathing is the same, boss pathing is the same. You're not going to be fighting anyone differently, which I think is good, right? For those who have mastered it, you're gonna come back and feel right at home. And for those of us who are like me, who are hopping in for really their not first time. Like, I've tried this game twice and it never clicked. This time, however, I have a determination in my gut. I'm not going to be beat by this game. It's a fresh experience, and I've enjoyed it. Just the boss fights have been, outside of the Tower Knight, for me, the boss fights have been lackluster, but the environments and the exploration has been really strong. Like, the 3D audio, when I really noticed it, now I know because I did have my headphones set up, so I know I was experiencing it. When you're on that area in the Bulletarian Palace where you have that bridge. It's after the first boss, and the dragon's flying by with the like lighting the whole bridge on fire. Holy shit, man! Because you could hear them coming, you can hear them overhead. The sound of the crackling of the fire. It's just, oh my god, dude. It does. So the thing is what we touched on with DualSense and now 3D audio. These all sound like little things. And I'll admit, I ignored 3D audio up until I played Demon's Souls Remake. But now it's like these little things PlayStation is doing are really adding to the overall experience. So, I mean, man, it is good. It
remember one thing. Xbox has actually more support for 3D audio.
Does that work across all games, or does the game have to specifically sort it? It does. Okay.
So what happens
I didn't
is
play with headphones for Xbox,
Sony just happened to like mention that they named their hardware chip for music. That's
Tempest or whatever
Tempest.
They say.
Yeah, and so, but there's Windows Sonic, which is their Sonic version, and then there's their hardware, which is brand new, which offers like 300 channels. That's way more channels than any human would ever program into a game. So they both do have 3D audio. The reason why in particular you hear it about Sony a lot of times is because for whatever reason, Sony decided to name it. And that became the thing. Like,
gotcha.
And just like Microsoft is like the Velocity architecture or whatever, you're just like, dude, what is that? Who named Tempest? Like, was it a 3-year-old at a fucking arcade? Like,
man, I hate when I get grabbed by these marketing names and I think it's something completely fucking different because I don't know any better.
And so, they're different in that they're full, they're awesome hardware chips, but they both have them. And then there's fake 3D, which is a big deal. Atmos does vertical. And so does DTX, all of those. And I'm not dissing on either one of the platforms. It's just that whenever it's a weird battle, Matty. It would be like me and you doing dual videos and like you just naming some thing that you're talking about, a thing, and hoping everybody thinks it's special. Like, oh, well, nobody covers that. Only Matty does that. And you're like, wait, what? Like, it's just sort of weird. But it's the big bonus here is that it also fits into the DualSense. So the 3D audio does react to your left DualSense vibration, right?
Gotcha.
Which is what you were discussing, which is absolutely a only for PlayStation. That is a thing. I don't know about you. Did you do Spider-Man Miles Morales?
No, I don't. I think my copy's still sealed, actually. Yeah, I see. The thing is with Game Pass and then PlayStation, I was letting my desires take over. I was just going game.
That's the best way to do it, right? Play what you want.
It's been so much fun. It's been so much fun, but yeah, I haven't gotten to that yet.
Miles has a car pass by, and unfortunately, I was going to argue a little bit with Dustin. I think Miles overuses this a bit for whatever reason, but it vibrates on the left and moves to the right when a car passes in front of you. And then the audio also. And I found that was probably the only part. But I remember going, whoa, that was pretty cool. Less so the vibration, but more so that really good 3D audio. And like you said, the Dragon, Call of Duty, which we'll talk about in a second, primo 3D audio in that game. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that other people can experience the stuff we've all talked about for a long time.
Yeah, dude. It's awesome. Well, hopefully Dustin's choking on his dinner right now. Let's get into Spider-Man Miles Morales. Karak, the stage is yours, right? I haven't played this game, so this is all you.
You haven't played it at all.
I have not played it at all. I don't know. See, the thing is especially knowing how short it is, I loved Spider-Man in 2018. It's one of my favorite games of the generation. So I'm not in a rush to get to Miles Morales because I know I'm going to really dig it. I have no doubt I will. I had a couple of worries with its game length. I ended up being correct on that. So now I definitely feel like I don't need to dive right into it because it isn't this super long experience. I can just pick it up and beat in what I've heard is 10, 12 hours maybe.
Yeah.
And it's sort of done. And I kind of want to savor that because it was rare enough we got a good Spider-Man game. To get a second one 2 years later, from what I've read, I just, have you ever had something you really, you're excited for, but your brain's almost like, stay away. You want that to last. That's
in masturbation, it's called edging. In gaming, it's just called rolling it back. And I just got to say, it's a real thing, bro.
I was getting sexual, so it's fine.
Delayed gratification, that's a thing, and I do it all the time. If I get a new...
You edge all the time?
Not edge. Well, technically in games I do, but if I get hardware of some kind, or if I get, tech... I do have a tendency, if I'm really excited, to hold it to be the last thing. I was also that way with food. Like as a dessert, I would be like, okay, I'm going to eat this stuff. And then, this, whatever this, even if it wasn't dessert, because I like mashed potatoes or something, I'm like, dude, I'm going to wait. Games, I definitely do that. And you and I don't have the experience very much because we're reviewers. So usually you can't do that. Right. But what happened to me is my PlayStation died, which did help me do that because I was down for 2 days. So instead of knowing my timeline was fucked. And I also got to do what you said, which is just sort of sit back and do, and play what I wanted. I think you're going to enjoy Miles. Miles is, it can be about 25 if you do all the stuff. Okay. It's got some good suits. It's got some really good action. The fighting's different. The music is, hang on one second. Hey, Ming, quiet. I may have to put him outside because lately he's been worse. The music is not. I'm sorry, I do not like the music at all. At all. I would be really interested to see what you think.
Score or just
all of it.
Wow.
Really? It's So they tried. So Miles, of course, different heritage than Peter Parker, which I liked. His family unit in this is fucking awesome, Maddie. Like. He goes home, they have dinner, and they don't force it. They're not like, oh my God. Instead, it's like you have this scene where they play out, and then you have to do some stuff as Spider-Man, and then back in the normal Christmas scene. I thought that was just awesome. Really well done.
Interesting.
And yeah, that stuff was great. But the music they chose for him is obviously supposed to match that, which isn't my favorite music in the world anyway. But additionally, it doesn't fit the thematic and the cinematic bits. And there's a couple times where it's like, in the background, wickety wickety whack. And I'm just like, oh man, this is not for me. It's just not for me. And then suddenly it would go to orchestral for like one moment. So it'd be like, wickety da 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 da, like The Rock. And you're like, what is happening with this?
It sounds like, I feel like a lot of movies do that, right? It's like, you hear the violins pick up like dun, 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 and then it switches to something completely off, like for comedic touch.
And this is like the opposite, where it starts with the comedic and then goes to like what you expect, which is the orchestral. It's just off. And I know other people probably love it. I haven't heard anybody say, but I think Miles is a cool character. His voice actor, is that the same guy from Spider-Man?
I actually have to double check that. I hadn't looked. I know a lot of people were really hyped that what's his name? Devin. I have to look it up. I'll check while you keep talking.
Okay. So his voice is very high pitched. So he sounds insanely young. And it's really weird because there's like a romantic interest, and I got a very Star Trek fucking Padme and what's his name? Like love interest moment where like they're talking, not love interest, but there's a little of a romantic back and forth. And he's like, hi, what are you doing? And it just doesn't sound right. It sounds really weird with them mixed that way. But I like him. I think the characters on the side were cool. But I got to say this, man. I am so stunned. Dude, this is not being rude. I want to make sure this is not being rude, man. But no, people need to start trying to get Troy Baker to not sound like Troy Baker. It is so bad and so lackluster. He's in the game as a rich bad guy, like a, I don't know, like a mega mind kind of guy. And it is Troy Baker. There is absolutely no attempt in delivery or pace or beat or anything to change him. And it really hurts because that character could have been interesting. And every time he walked in the room, you were like, that's just Troy Baker. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And I really think audio designers are probably afraid to do what Neil Druckmann does. I guess Neil's pretty on him at times. Neil's like, no, you got to do it. You have to, I want more emotion. I want this, blah, blah, blah. I wish more people would do that because I do not have an issue with Troy Baker. I have an issue with the people who ask him to voice their characters, not asking him to do something different. And that it's very noticeable in this game. I mean,
yeah, because I feel like he has such a standout voice. That's probably something you could individually pick up on with him.
You do instantly, dude. It's like he walks in and I'm like, oh, are you Bruce Banner from the Avengers? Or are you the dude from Last of Us? Or are you... I mean, you can just go through all of his stuff. Yeah. And the thing is if some games he does incredible. I liked him in Batman. I actually liked him. And I think a lot of people if I remember right, people weren't happy with his take in the Batman game.
I liked it
because
The
he was
Joker, right?
He was
Yeah.
Joker. I liked him, but I think if I remember right, we might be in the minority on that. But anyway, talented. I just wish they had demanded more. That would have been very helpful to sort of level it out. But yeah, you'll like it, dude. Yeah, 15 hours. You're 100%er though, aren't you?
Yeah, with at least
so
these
15,
types of games.
20.
Yeah, I actually looked it up. Najee Jeter is the voice actor for Miles Morales, and what's pretty cool is it's a great continuation because he was in the Spider-Man cartoon as Miles Morales for the last 3 years. He's still there.
That's what it was. Okay.
He was in I Heard Him. He was in Ultimate Alliance 3, where he sounded just like the movie counterpart. He was in, of course, Spider-Man 2018, and he is the lead voice for Miles Morales here in his very own game. So it's a pretty cool continuation.
Yeah, very much so.
He does sound just like the person from the movie. I'm
he sounds so young to me. I don't know. It's just weird. I'm not that Peter Parker sounded like a gravelly old fucking Gears of War character or anything.
Yeah.
But I will say the face thing. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse was Shamik Moore. So a different man, but interesting. They both did sound kind of similar, which is good. There's a continuity there.
Yeah, for sure.
Sadly, I can't add more to Miles Morales, so I just leave it in your hands. If
you're gonna do it this weekend, or what?
This weekend I'm gonna probably try Call of Duty a little bit. I don't know, because here the thing is I tried to get Spider-Man early. I was pretty on PlayStation about it, because I was hearing codes getting handed out left and right, and I just wanted to keep circling back because I knew they were busy with the launch of the consoles, and I was relatively early in my request, and I heard nothing back. So once everyone's reviews were kind of out there, I figured, all right, I will do some type of impression/review video, but it'll be sometime next week, and I don't know if it'll be the first thing I do. It's nothing in spite, by the way. It's I'm not entitled to codes. It's just
no, but you have to move stuff around. Obviously.
Exactly. Like I had Call of Duty since the day before it came out, so I had a head start on that, where I could get it installed, because it took fucking forever, and have it ready to rock for the weekend, so I can burst through that campaign and play with the multiplayer a little bit. So I am excited about that. I think that'll be my first thing, and then I'll go to Miles Morales afterwards, as I exchange with Demon Souls. That's kind of the game plan in my head as it stands. I still got to finish Trails of Cold Steel 2. I'm in the last 5 hours of that game, and it's just sitting there. Everything else is just taking over. Yeah, man, it's ridiculous. All right, well, here's a game we can both talk about then. It is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So you caught my attention a little bit. You said this wasn't something you were a big fan of, and I'm just more so curious what stood out to you that you didn't like. By all means, get us started.
Technically, I had some issues. Ignoring those, well, technically, I had a number of issues. I posted them in the video. There were some egregious ones, but ignoring that, I just said wait for sale, not wait for a deep sale or something. But I would say that. So I played Odyssey 3 times through, 2.5 times through, and I played Origins 1.5 times through. It wasn't as huge of a fan. Overall, they still have Assassin's Creed animations, but I felt that in Origins and in Odyssey, those fit the characters far better than Valhalla. What I had an issue with, and I see it in everybody's video, but I feel like other than 1 or 2 other people, I'm the only one that picked up that it bothers. He never feels like a Viking, ever. He feels like a ninja, and his speed with a double axe is ridiculous. I mean, it didn't even feel right. I grabbed these double-handed axes, and if you hold the left bumper, is that the right one? I think it's bumper. Or is it trigger? Okay, so if you hold it, you'll do the quick attack. It is like fucking mass murder times 10,000 speed.
Yeah,
it's
just
really yeah, and so I also noticed there was a lot of cut animations, and this particularly, I noticed this at the starting in the first 4 hours, and it got much better later. There's a lot of weird errors and cutscenes where a character would be like, blah, 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 and their hand would do something weird, that kind of stuff. But I felt that they pushed the Viking idea a great deal, but whenever I was trying to interact as a Viking, I never felt like one. And I did with the double-handed axe, and the flail was way too slow. I don't know what was going on.
I tried that in the preview event, and I was just like, no.
What's happening, Matty? It's 45 minutes. It takes 40. I have video of it, and I'm like this. I hit the button, and he's all, and I'm like, what is going on with this weapon?
You're hit like 3 times before you get an attack off. It's ridiculous.
I noticed a lot of sliding for attacks. So like I would get caught on a dude, and I'd try to do the right stun attack, and then when it would activate, he'd be like, pop, and go and do it. The special moves are okay. They didn't really excite me too much. I think that their world building and story is by far the best, though. So like taking those side stories and making them 3 major stories, and then sort of like making them, even if they're goofy, making them impactful. Like Axehead. Did you see that one?
Axehead.
The dude with the axe in his head, and he's talking to you.
No, I didn't see that one.
You missed one of the best. I don't want to even.
I've seen some really funny ones, but that's one I haven't.
I don't want to talk about it. It's phenomenal, and it's only like 2 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff was great, man. All that stuff, the settlement, everything you do in the game returns you to the settlement. Everything you do in the game causes you to leave the settlement. So for the first time ever, settlement to me, maybe not perfect, but it mattered. And I loved Far Cry, but the settlement sort of did its own thing, and I would be told stuff was happening. Here, I would build stuff, more people would show up, I would go to the war table, discuss something, get an idea for who to go, what quest to go on. That stuff was phenomenal. But every time I started battle, I was just frustrated. And this is also the first time where I feel like the AI just let me down all the time. Sometimes you just aren't in sync. And I would have so many errors. It was so many. I don't know if you saw my video. I have guys running in a circle like 24/7 in my game. So I'll be going to a spot, and there'll be dudes that will hook their arms together and just run in a circle at like 8. They're obviously trying to get around each other, but the game's broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened to me all the time. And I got to tell you, Maddie, it wears down on you. Like it just continued to happen. Every time I would think I was going to have an awesome battle, I would attack somebody with a special, and I would go like, no lie, I've got a video where I swing the axe. My character, Eivor, I picked the guy. I don't know what you picked.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
I went about 80 feet. I hit a wall of stone, slide straight up the wall, go down the other side, and then hit the guy with the special. Like, it felt like it wasn't even ready. And so all that made me just be like,
I get that. Yeah, I agree. The combat's a major sticking point, which is kind of strange because as a Viking game, if anything, you're doing a lot of fighting, even if you don't feel like a Viking. For me, the lack of Viking came to his composure. There are parts where you have choices to really just say haul off, but I don't know. It just seemed like they had a different character in mind at times, because he just, a lot of Vikings are like, for glory, for battle, for Valhalla. The game's named Valhalla, and your guy's like,
Yeah,
let's think about this.
I never thought about that. That is absolutely true. That every time somebody's mad, he's like, hold up, let's discuss. And you're like, dude, what the hell is happening right now? That is absolutely true and does continue through the entire game.
It really does. And it gives you choice, which is what they're going for. So I guess it works. And there are times where you could just be a Viking and kill someone, punch someone. But it's not as prominent as him really using. He's like, let's talk about our feelings, everyone. It's like, all right, Eivor. So that's one thing that did stick out. But as you kind of touched on with the world events and that progression loop is fantastic.
Yep.
It has a lot of charm to it. I thought it was one of the best entries they've had in a while because I think they improved on a lot of things. You and I, we've talked Odyssey up a lot on this show. One of the complaints we've gotten from our audience when it comes to Odyssey is the bloat, the amount of content there in between the great story segments. And I totally get that because as an RPG, you want to go through that story again, see how it can go. But you don't want to spend another 20 hours doing side quests. Because the world events are truncated, if you want to get extra skill points, you can get them through there really quickly, and they're very entertaining because they're not these multi-step quests.
Right,
so
exactly.
It cuts down on a ton of bloat. I didn't like the combat, but I never felt like I was suffering through anything, right? And I know that sounds ridiculous to say, like, oh, you weren't suffering, thank God. But I'm more so saying, while I wasn't in love with it, it more so felt janky, right? And I'm a guy who's a fan of Vampire. So I don't know if my tolerance is just higher for jank, but I didn't think it was so bad that I was lacking in enjoyment when I was getting those rewards from raids, where I was getting supplies. I thought that they handled loot a lot better.
Way better, 10 times better. 10 times
like
better.
The past two with Origins and Odyssey, I get what they were going for, but the like, here's your gold chest plate and then your gold brown chest. I don't know, man. Like they just like add letters to names or to items, and that would be it. Like it would just add significance to it. Whereas in this game, the loot comes from those chests that you actively seek out, and you start to build a set of armor, and that set of armor does something completely different from the one you start off with and the one you find somewhere else in the world. And so I just thought that for once, Ubisoft really got exploration and progression down to a T, and it helps that the story is way better. And I think I didn't actually check if they gave us this for Odyssey, but I did notice when it came to Valhalla, we had a list showing off all the choices we can make in the game. And
did we?
Yeah, we did.
I didn't see that in the PR. I didn't see that.
And you can actually see all the moments throughout the game that you can make choices, how things can play out if you do something. Sometimes they're very subtle, but I was impressed by how many there really were and how many some you do early in the game can affect you later on. It was really impressive to just see it all. And
very cool.
Having that knowledge and watching it all unfold, it was really, really cool. And I read this after the fact, by the way, so I wasn't looking for these moments, by the way, just to kind of put them onto a piece of paper, though, brought it together in my head. And it was very impressive. And I think it was more, what I was getting to here is more than Odyssey. So to me, it did a lot more, where I feel like action RPGs always have that issue, right? It's like, okay, we've done more story choices, we've handled the world better, like we've done everything better, the combat's got to fall back, right? Like that seems to always happen.
Right.
And maybe I'm just trained mentally to expect that, because we've had games that sort of do it all to some extent. But I immediately think of something like Skyrim. It's like they do so many things right that I always felt like combat's an afterthought. It's the thing you do between point A and point B. And Assassin's Creed Valhalla has a little bit of that. But were you a fan of Homestead in the Assassin's Creed 3?
I was not as much a fan of that as, once again, the train in Syndicate.
Oh, I always forget that one.
Dude, I don't know how
I'm sorry.
Dude, it's so good. But regardless, long story short, we're both reflecting on, like, that part is the good part and what we would like to see these games continue to do, I think.
Yeah, I feel like exactly what you say. I know I always bash on Primal, but I'll be serious here, Karak. I promise.
Yeah, whatever.
You have my word.
Okay.
Is that I'm happy that system existed, right? That whole village system to build off of it. I'm very, not that I never was happy, but now I'm even more happy, because it seems like they had something there and they've finally been able to really bring that to life in a way that's meaningful. You know, because one of the coolest things, man, is just seeing someone come into your village, or your settlement, sorry, and you get a new quest from them, or you build a building and then there's a new quest line unlocked. I mean, that is awesome. That is so awesome. It makes the game, it's a very big game too. They really talked about how they cut down on things, and they did cut down on the bloat, as in the meaningless BS you can do on the side, but it's still a fucking long game. Like, it's a big game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the thing is, so it is a huge game, but I think for the most part you're doing stuff more than you were in Odyssey. I love Odyssey, by the way. Like, and I remember I didn't love Odyssey when it first came out, because it did once again had some glitches and all that kind of stuff. There were some, I still liked it, but there were some issues. I think Odyssey was fantastic. I didn't know what to expect from Valhalla, but I think Valhalla trumps it for sure. In like the way, I think it trumps, I want to make sure people don't think I'm saying it's better. I think it trumps even Witcher. I think it trumps almost any RPG. And the reason why I say that is because it just, the quests match up better in this game. Things like make sense more. They're connected better. The way you're always going back to your home base, all that just feels better than almost any other RPG, even though I wouldn't call this a big RPG. Like, it is an action RPG. But yeah, he's Eivor, even though he isn't as action-packed as I would like as a character. He is pretty solid, pretty stoic there's a lot to like. Unfortunately, all the stuff you described that you like, I did like somewhat, but I was always experiencing bugs or the animation, which I just didn't like the look of. And
what system did you sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, just what system did you review on? Because I was on a base PS4. Mine just chugged at times, but
Xbox
that was the worst.
and PC. And on PC it chugged at first, and no lie, happened. By the way, 6 people have told me this as of this morning. You get out of the snow, the chug goes away. So I'm assuming that has to do with deformation on the snow or something.
I was gonna say,
but
yeah.
I was having some weird FPS issues. I played the Xbox version, the PC version updates with the save. So the PC version updated. I went back into the PC version and suddenly 25 extra FPS. And I was like, what? What's happening right now? And then I realized, oh, it's in an entirely different land. This is also amazing in some of the stuff you do on the side that is huge. It's not one land, and people do not. I still have people in my Discord who have not like gone elsewhere, and some of the elsewheres are really elsewhere. There's a couple.
Yes.
Dude,
yes, I know what you're talking about.
And dude, I can tell. I can fucking tell, Matty.
Yeah.
I'll be in my Discord and they'll be talking about, and I'll be like, you haven't got to this point. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, because I'd know. Because I can tell. You guys would be in here a shit in a fucking green streak if you had gone to what I'm talking about. And then suddenly you'll see somebody post and they'll be like, are you fucking kidding me? And I'm like,
yeah, dude.
You got it.
I'll say this much so that the audience knows what to look for, and it doesn't spoil anything. But think of in Syndicate. One of my favorite parts was you went to World War I. That was fucking cool. Yeah. They have something kind of on that level, but a lot bigger. in Valhalla. And it is ridiculous. Fucking sweet.
Yeah.
It's such
ridiculous.
A cool game.
It's ridiculous. And those things almost made me be like, but again, I just had other issues with it. But yeah, there's a lot in that game that like, that's why when I heard that it was doing so well this morning, I was just like, that's why I tweeted. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like because I'm like, they put a lot into that. I don't think that they didn't, and I think some people are coming across, most of the reviews are very high. So that's another thing. I'm the odd man out, or I haven't checked other reviews, but I was the odd man out for a long time, being like, it's not really for me. It's been very highly praised, so I think that's cool. It should be. Dude. It deserves to be. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, no, I get that entirely, and it might be something like Odyssey, where when I finished that, I don't think when we talk about it on the podcast, I don't think people would know I said wait for a sale on that game. I don't really think they would know that,
right? Because we changed over time as they've continually like patch the shit out of it and release better DLC.
You played Odyssey's DLC, right? And I think you really liked it. And so
Yep.
I never played it, and I already liked Odyssey a lot. Who was I talking to? It was one of
Crazy
my friends.
Herb?
No, it was actually one of my friends.
Yeah,
he is always talking about my friend loved Odyssey, but he said I think it's the Fate of Atlantis is what it's called.
Yeah.
He said that DLC got really bloated or something like that, which I'm not sure. I thought it was cut down, or I don't know if maybe he was going straight from the base game to that where there was something there. I don't know, but I've never played it, and even I speak of the game highly, but you wouldn't know that. It's just as seeing them do that custom quest update, like that was fucking cool. That was so cool.
Well, and I guess that is one thing, completely off subject real quick. I hope they continue, because I'm going to tell you, I made quests in Odyssey fairly easily. With the create a quest kind of stuff. And I got to tell you, man, if they don't have that continued in Valhalla, that is really going to be somewhat upsetting to me, because I loved being able to like create your quest in Odyssey. And I created a quest where people came and tried to kill the podcast members. And I was able to do it in like half an hour. I mean, I have scripted before, but it was like, I was able to figure everything out and get it set up. They've done a lot of support for Odyssey, and Valhalla would be the same. I got the special quest because of the code. Beowulf expansion.
Oh, yeah.
And I did that one, and it was okay. In fact, I think that's one of the few things where it's great that the base game stuff was better in that manner. I like the base game stuff. Dude, Axehead. I'm not lying. Dude, I got my feet up, right? This is like 3 a.m. My wife and I are still up for some reason. I'm playing this game, and all of a sudden I just start going, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? As I'm walking, I'm like, I can't be seen. Is that what I think it is? And my wife turned around and looked. She's like, what the fuck? It was awesome. I was just sitting here. I was like, what the shit is happening? That's when you can't tell people that you get mad, right? Because we're reviewing. And I'm like, I can't like ask anybody if they've seen this character. And people probably won't be as cool about it now that I've told them. But to me, that was like one of those moments where you knew the game was, and it was one of my first ones. So I knew the game that had primed me. I was like, oh shit, if this is, you know, one, what does that mean for the others? So yeah, very cool. Despite, like I said,
that was me with the, what was her name? She was in the sewers and she wanted viper eggs.
Oh my God, dude.
Oh my
God.
word.
What in the fuck was that quest?
I know, bro. And when you finish and you go up into the town, incredible moment. Probably, I hate to say it, but probably one of my favorite moments in the entire Assassin's Creed series right there.
Well, and that's the thing is like they, I think maybe doing all the stuff with the quest helped them do the side stuff and take more time, like not just resources, but pay attention and continue stuff. So it didn't feel like one step, because that one, there's a couple others and there's something about them that's just like, are you fucking for real? Like, what in the fuck? Yeah, it was so good. Dude.
Well, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I felt delivered, but I totally get your issues with it, especially technically speaking.
Though, Matty, I should mention real quick. Uplays $15 and you get it for free.
Okay, that's actually pretty solid then if people want to try it out.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I think it's well worth that for sure.
Yeah. That's definitely good to be aware of then, because I know a lot of people. I would have mentioned that in my review. That's something.
I didn't know either. I don't think I remembered. Yeah.
I feel like that's something that eventually will get added to Game Pass on a totally off-topic note, just because I feel like EA Play was at a good value, $5, where you could justify saying, "I'll sign up for this," get the trial or get these set of games here.
Right.
But like Ubisoft, I don't know how many people are really signed up for Uplay.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know how like. It does feel like at some point we may see something. I know that they're teamed up with Amazon's Luna streaming service, but streaming services aren't the same as like, a service like that.
Yeah, just downloading it. We shall see if Ubisoft wants to give us free games. But for now, let's move into Godfall. Oh boy. How much of this game did you play?
Not a lot. I'll let you go. I played, I watched a ton. And that's not my normally way, but I watched a ton, and I got to tell you, I was like, oh no, it repeated stuff very quickly, and I was just like, I'm out. And I played like 2 or 3 hours. A lot of that was fucking around, and then I was just like, I'm out. So, yeah, that can be on you.
Yeah, so, all right, so I played about 6. I gave it that much time. Yeah, I know. Well, because here's the thing, Karak, I think you could... Would you agree I'm a pretty positive guy?
Yeah, you're more positive than me. For
okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So you don't hear these exact words come out of my mouth often, that I fucking hate this game.
Yeah.
I hate this game.
Figured that's where that was going.
Yeah. It's not even, I don't like it. It's kind of bad. I hate this game. I do not like it at all. Nothing about it is redeeming to me outside of maybe its art. It's art. It looks pretty. That's about it. So... Godfall, I think it got... At first, I thought it was getting a bit of a bad rap heading into its launch, because it kind of had that Raid Shadow Legends vibe to it, where they like really marketed the fuck out of it to the point where people were already sick of hearing about it before the game came out. And for those who are unaware somehow, it is what they call a looter slasher, so it's a third-person kind of beat 'em up. And... Man, dude, I can't believe I played 6 hours. Like, I could not believe it. So, like Karak said, I'll hop into that right away. Immediately, they start reusing stuff. Immediately.
Yeah, immediately.
It is insane. I've seen some games that try to pad out pretty quickly. This one, it might be one of the fastest I've seen. So, the way they do it is you're going story mission to story mission. I don't know what the fuck's happening in the story outside of the fact that you've been betrayed and you got to stop your brother. That's literally it. And that's fine. It's a loot game. So whatever, get me to the combat, right? But what happens is you get to the end of the realm, and each realm has one of your brother's lieutenants, and you have to take them out, right? So you're thinking, oh, simple enough. Okay, like maybe this is just a bang bang, and you kind of like a Diablo, you keep looping the game, and you get more powerful enemies, get more powerful, different attack patterns. Oh, that could be interesting. But what happens is right when you're about to get to the boss, they go, oh, you need sigils. So in the case of the Earth Realm boss, I think it was at first 6 Earth Sigils. And so what you do is you go to hunt missions, which send you right back into that same zone that you've been in for the last 2 hours. And they give you it's weird, man. They'll give you 45 minutes to finish this boss off. And the missions, I'm not exaggerating, will take 3. It's weird. It's very 1, 2, 3 and not in a good way because there's a fuck ton of loading screens. And so you'll loop these missions as you get 1, 2, 3 sigils at a time. So you're thinking, okay, 6 sigils, I unlocked them, not bad. At least I'm going on to a new realm after I think it was 4 hours. So 4 hours in, I go to what's called the Water Realm. And what's weird is the Water Realm had aquatic creatures, but all they did was change the color of the hue.
Yeah.
So now it's a blue hue instead of a yellow hue. It doesn't feel like you're in the Water Realm. It just looks
fucking weird.
It looks fucking blue. It's like the same architecture outside of a couple of rocks and some floral, and that's really it. And so I'm thinking to myself at this point, okay, new realm, new enemies, you fight them all the same. And then I finished 2 missions, and now we're at the next lieutenant. And they're like, okay, to get to this lieutenant, you need sigils again. And this time you need 10 of each. So you immediately had to start repeating content once again. So number 1 right there, big flaw. Fucking repetitive as all fuck. Then the combat is terrible. It's so bare bones. And I know some people wouldn't care about that, but the thing is that even more bare bones is this progression system. You get 2 weapons, a charm, a banner, that all give you little crumb-like upgrades, like 5% here, 2% there. And I'm talking even when I got the legendary items, the most I saw was 10%. And I gave it that much time, right? I wanted to see, let me get some good loot, right? Something considered good for my level. And even when you get that, it's just dude, I'm barely doing shit. I feel like I'm the same character still. The skill system, bare bones, it's just, this skill gives you plus 5%, then plus 10, plus 15, and they all just do that for health, defense, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. So it's very boring to play. Obviously, the story holds nothing, and then it's repetitive. And so it's a wholehearted waste of time. And not only that, Karak, I got to talk about this one boss. This one motherfucker, all right? This son of a bitch. It's a fire boss, right? It's a looter slasher. They want you to get in close and attack with melee. I noticed this with the first lieutenant I fought, Zamora. For anyone who's insane enough to go play this game, look for Zamora, and you'll see a little bit of that. Inconsistent boss patterns where what'll happen is sometimes he'll zip around and hit you from behind. Sometimes he'll do an AoE attack. It's when sometimes the boss is balanced, they have a rhythm to them.
Yeah.
Not like you have to be able to know what they're doing next. That's part of the challenge, but there's no time to respond. And the developers clearly knew this because when you die, you could just keep respawning, but the boss will hold his health. So I saw a little bit of this with Zamora, beat Zamora after 8 tries, and I thought, okay, maybe just a bad boss. I got to this next one called 3X or something like that. It was like a fire dog in the Water Realm for whatever story reasons that was there.
Right. It makes sense.
And so this enemy goes against everything fundamentally designed in Godfall. It is a looter slasher. No ranged attacks exist, according to my knowledge, outside of your shield throw, and you can jump and throw your spear for a couple of extra damage. But bosses in this game are incredibly spongy. Even if you have, like I had, some legendary loot, they are incredibly spongy. And this boss in particular does everything in its power, not to keep you away, but to actually limit you from ever approaching them. So they'll scorch the ground with fire. They'll do leap attacks that when they land, scorch the ground with fire. They will do arena-wide laser attacks. There is no approaching this boss. And when you do get close, you do, dick damage. Nothing, dude. It's incredible.
Weird.
This game, dude, I hate this game, man. I really don't like it. You know me, man. I don't think I got much hate in my heart, but I found some space for Godfall in there.
You're not the only one, because I saw some reviews where, I saw some 70s, but then I saw some really low ones, and, that can mean whatever it means, but a lot of people, there was a couple people who were like, oh yeah, the combat's fun, but I saw a lot of people being like, what the fuck, this just doesn't make any sense when you're playing it. It feels a little bit like somebody looked at a Dark Souls and sort of wanted it but didn't know how to make one, and just sort of set it up in a weird way. Additionally, I did see a lot of people saying it feels like this had a free-to-play model at one point, and it's been haphazardly, like, somehow, like, had that stuff removed. So, and I don't know if that's true. It sounds like it's a little true, though, from what you're saying.
It sounds possible. I don't know. See, the thing is it felt so empty. I don't know what they were trying to do. Like, you'll even notice it in the environment. You know how most times when you're exploring any open area in most video games, the skirmishes of enemies are kind of based in an area that makes sense. Like, oh, they're guarding the gate, or they're in this town. They're doing something, right? Or it makes sense why you'd combat there. But these enemies just randomly respawn, and they're just like, I don't know how else to describe it. It sounds like I'm nitpicking, but but if you play it, you get it. They're just there. Yeah. You don't know why they're there. They're just there. And like I said, I know it sounds nitpicky, but like, it's amazing. You'll just be running down a path, and all of a sudden, boop, 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 there they are, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? Like, where'd you guys, like, I just passed here. Where'd you guys come from?
Yeah, right.
Man, do not play this game.
I mean, it's one of those ones that'll disappear, launch title.
100%.
Got good graphics. I think that's why, how it's sort of started getting bandied around. But that is apparently all.
Dude.
I'm glad I didn't play it. I mean, or play it anymore. I probably won't return to it.
I openly inherited your rule with reviews. I buy copies of games I review, so my money's on the line. And I told people openly in my video, I said, I'm not fucking giving them my money for this game. I said free was enough. I said that is how I truly feel about this. Any other game I reviewed, I have bought with my own cash. I have no issue doing that because I think it's a fair system. It's a great system. But dude, I'm not paying for that game. I'm not giving them $70 nowadays too. I'm not.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
No, that's the other thing, man. Like, I felt the need also to just really hammer this game because funny enough, as we're recording this, my video went live. I just had to hammer this game though because it's like, if we're going to be paying $70, I understand part of that's because development costs are already going up as it is. They just need to balance that out. But if I'm paying $70, I'm not paying $70 for something like this ever.
Yeah, because it looks like even less was done. Not even equal amounts were done.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. So I apologize for the rant. I apologize for being toxic, but dude,
that's too bad.
Like to add on.
No,
to it?
I mean, a couple people I talked to said, they were mentioning other games that have somewhat felt like this, and the only thing I can say is, it's rare you see a game where the first thing out of everybody's mouth is that it repeats content almost instantly, and that to me is like, wait, what? That's such a weird. You gotta
go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, it's such a weird ideal, and every single person I've talked, even like I said, I've got one guy who likes it, but I think he more likes it because he's with friends playing. Like he's like, yeah, okay, just, but it's. I mean, we see it every gen. We see that one or two release title, that just gets out because of graphics, and then we just never hear about it again.
It's just so weird because I feel like last gen's was Rise Son of Rome, and I admittedly kind of like that. I don't know.
So did I. But I get what you mean.
I feel like there was a soul there, at least. Like, the story was surprisingly decent, while it was a ton of QTEs, I still enjoyed something about it. Maybe it was the interactivity of the combat.
Well, and it didn't repeat.
It didn't,
yes. I think, it was like 8 hours of solid movement from one area to the other. You didn't have to regurgitate. So
exactly, man. And so I think that's a big part of it, is at least there was something there in Rise Son of Rome. Even if you didn't like it, I think you can just go like, yeah, there's something there. The other thing, I forgot to bring this up, is even if you want to play with a friend or you want to buy it and matchmake, there is no matchmaking right now. And I'm like,
I heard that. Yeah.
Like, what planet are we on right now?
Hang on. I'm going to let them out.
No, you're good, man. See, Karak's dogs are so uppity right now because Godfall is just that bad.
They just left. They're like, that's it. We're out.
Yeah, that's it. Enough Godfall talk.
I mean, I would like to see those guys not, have any issues and continue to make another game. I don't think Godfall 2 would be in the cards. But we are starting to see, I think, some games that are getting released too soon for the like almost to capture onto the console. I think Godfall's probably that way. And I don't know if you heard, but 13 is terrible. Do you know what 13 is?
Oh, yeah, I've heard some stuff about that remaster. That shit got announced a while ago.
Bro, it was so bad the developers and publishers emailed everybody who covered it. And we're like, we want to apologize for its state. And we can talk about Call of Duty because I think there's some COVID related stuff there. What happened? It's terrible. Dude, it's horrendous. 13 is like it is bad graphics, it is bad animation, it is bad gameplay, it is terrible sound. It is I would have accepted, I'm a big fan of 13. I would have accepted a mediocre game. This would make mediocre look absolutely game of the year. It is trash. And it's crazy because why release? One of the first things somebody said was, why? Why? If you had these issues, why release it? And sometimes it's like, we just need to cut the umbilical cord, man. We just got to get it out. It's done. Like, we may apologize later. And I think that's the situation they were in. It's a smaller publisher. It was Microids, which I don't even know if you know who they are. They only handle
never heard of them, actually.
More eclectic games like Agatha Christie's mysterious novels, and shit like that. So it's not like, yeah. But yeah. So I think we're seeing that with a couple of these titles just coming out, trying to capture on, hoping to get some sales because of the next gen, and then they'll disappear.
Right. Well, you wanted to talk about Call of Duty. Why don't we hop into that a little bit while we're on shooters of some kind? This is all you. I have not played this at all, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What have you messed with? Have you messed with the story mode? Because that's honestly, this is the first COD in a while I'm like really interested on this because it's apparently got a lot of choices and whatnot in it.
A ton. So I beat that. I played a ton of zombies. First word of warning to people, I don't know how. So if you have the PS5, it installs the PS4 version. So you got to make sure to go in and correct that. But additionally, for reasons I can't figure out, the saves are not cross-compatible. They said they were, but nothing that I played on the PS4 version is on my PS5 version. I had to redo everything, which was a shitter. But basically, the question is how many America fuck yeah moments can you have in a video game in the first 5 minutes? And the answer would be 12. Like, it is redonkulous, Maddie. At some point, you find yourself upside down in a helicopter on fire, shooting a machine gun into palm trees that explode. It's if Michael, I'm not lying, if Michael Bay's wet dream became a reality, it would be this. It's fucking so ridiculous. And I loved that part of it, the over the top. I mean, but it is so dumb because when it happens, I'm like, okay, we're going to get out. And he's like, man, the guns. And you're like, man, the guns? We're fucking upside down. What are you talking about? We're on fire, by the way, in a gasoline-filled helicopter. And you're just like, whoosh, upside down. And I'm like, all right, whatever. All right. I like that. That's the way it's going to be. There is a ton of choice. It's fucking awesome. So, you'll get to the end area of a dude, you fight into the end. He's trying to get away. You've stopped him from getting away. You grab him, and you can choose to, toss him off the roof, interrogate him, or and then let him go, or interrogate him and then take him with your unit and, continually interrogate him, right? So you have, capture. And most of them have that, and when you win, the game actually covers that verbally and with some graphics of what you did and talks you through, so what happened with blah, 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 blah.
Mission or, at the end of the game?
At the end of the game. And, it also actually in the game, too. So if they're alive, stuff changes in the game, which isn't a spoiler, but basically you have this evidence board, which I don't know why every game seems to have this now, like a CSI board with their little pins and fucking yarn stretching. So you start to get these. And you have optional side missions where you have to get clues from the other missions to tell you the side mission stuff. So you can't even go into some side missions unless you have clues from the other missions you found in dossiers and files, which I thought was awesome. So that gives you a reason to go. Go ahead.
What game did that? What was the game where you could do that? I think it was World War II where you had the stealth mission. Was that did they have side content in there? What was the game that had
There is for sure a game that did. We were talking about this and I couldn't remember which one. So it could be that. I know the flying space one also had multiple side missions.
Oh, Infinite. I think that was it. Yeah, Infinite was it. I was thinking of the mission where you had the disguise, World War II with the
So funny enough, that occurs in here. There's a massive long stealth mission. And it was very good. I was like, I had a good time. I was sitting there going, what is happening? I have no guns for a long time. And I just sort of chuckled to myself about 25, 30, 40 minutes in going wow, they did not hesitate to just say, we're not going to go loud. You're going to be fucking stealthy. You got to do this to do this to do this. You got to go over here. You got to set this up. And all that kind of stuff in that fake choice or real choice mended in worked really well. I loved that stuff. However, and I think you like these games better than me, I am not a Black Ops story fan. I am actually, strangely enough, some of the normal Call of Duty. And the reason why is because I believe Black Ops is so far up its own ass, if it masturbated, it'd choke itself. It's so far up its own ass. And I can tell what's happening in the first, I am telling you, Maddie, I wrote it down within the first 7 minutes. I was like, I bet you it's this. Because you can tell if you think that way. And I was like, please, no. And it was. Was that bad? No, because I like getting there. But they're so up their own ass. Like, it always has to be the thing that's tropish. It can't just not be that. And that's what bothered me.
Because it's coming from Raven, who's kind of doing different things. Like, that's not their speed.
Yeah, and everything else was the quest, the fucking. So first of all, the having to get stuff from other missions to even be able to really do the main one of the side missions was very cool, because that gave me a reason to go back if I wanted to. But what it also did was it made me go, oh, from now on, when I go into a mission, I got to look around, because I don't want to have to go back to the mission. I want to be able to do a side mission. I thought that was awesome, because it made me pay attention versus just barrel through. Right?
How long was it with all those choices and things?
Oh, that's, not much longer. It was probably
interesting.
I mean, I did testing on the PS4, which then the save failed. But I would say, I mean, I have every bit of footage. I would say probably 7, 8 at absolute most. And if you're a good, if you're like a good shooter kind of thing, probably even shorter.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay, wait a minute. I did skip one side mission. And I think there's some hidden stuff. So to be clear, there's some hidden stuff in your base. You have to figure some stuff out to open up a section via a code. And then when I got in there was another puzzle. So there's some almost, I don't know what you call that, not X-Files, but there's some, even in your own place, there's some secretive stuff going on, which I dug, and I did not figure out some of the stuff in there as well, which may have unlocked another mission. I don't know.
Wasteland 3, funny enough. Remember how you had that home base
of which one?
Wasteland 3. Remember how you had that home base, and then you had those locked doors by the med bay, I think it was.
Right, and you had to unlock them later as you went. Yeah, that's sort of how some of this plays out. But yeah, in the shootings, dude, it's Call of Duty shooting. I love the audio. I've always thought their guns and stuff sound good. However, they were obviously impacted by the virus. And they stated that in an interview, and I can tell you why. There are 2 levels in this game that have got to be from a PS2 game.
Oh, no.
Dude, there's a level in this game that's so bad that when I warped in, I was like, what is going on in this level? And then when I beat it, I was like, was that a part of the store? So I went back. It's not. It's just poorly done. It's like a building with some fucking bookshelves thrown around inside of it. And you have this big battle, and they're trying to pretend it matters. But even the narrative slows down, and it feels like that point where they, because if you hear about games, they're not made perfectly linearly. It feels like this was the part that needed work at the end, and they just didn't get to it. They didn't get to tighten it up. The enemy spawns are really weird, and even that ending of that level is out of control. It just makes no sense what happens. And there's even a cut in the cutscene that's quick. But overall, the shooting and stuff, yeah, Michael Bay fucking shits on fire, and you get a bow for 13 minutes. You can't do loadouts either, which blows me away.
I thought that would
in
be
the single player. Sorry, is what I mean.
Yeah, no,
in the
I
co-op.
know, but I thought that'd be a guarantee. Interesting.
That's what I thought too. So I got confused because I got the bow in a level, and I'm like, cool, I got the bow. And unless it's in one of the other sections, which it could be in your main game section when you're playing the game, I can find nothing in the game that lets me say I want to enter this with my bow. You always enter it with the stock whatever that they have told you. And when I beat it, I thought maybe when I beat it, it would do that. And it also did not show that. So that's weird. But I'll continue looking at it just in case, because it's easy to make a mistake on those things, because they do have so much stuff. Zombies was fun. It's different. Are you a big fan of zombies?
Nostalgically, yes. I don't know. I don't get the whole zombies love anymore because I feel like they've just departed more and more and more. And that's not a bad thing because at its root, it was just a surprisingly fun horde mode.
Fun side thing, yeah.
And it was the surprise of it, in my opinion, that made zombies great. It's like, wait, this is Call of Duty. Why am I playing a ton of zombies? And so I saw, I'm not even exaggerating, I saw 5 seconds of footage of when someone shot a zombie in the head. I saw like damage numbers and I was like, what is, I'll figure it out when I play it. That's my first thought. Because I didn't want to, I started to feel like the predetermined bias slipping in of like, wait, what is this? So if you want to go ahead and explain it by all means, but I don't know what they've really done with it. I don't know if that was a score I saw maybe, or if that was damage. Like I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, I was able to kill guys with one-shot shotguns, so that could be later. But when I jumped in, I did solo, and then you can also do group matchmaking. I can't tell if you can do bots, but solo did work. It's hard as fuck by yourself. Like, it's almost impossible. But most of the game is based around you're basically in an open mission area, whatever mission area you start, and you have to continually expand that, by going to doors and doing stuff. Here, most of it's because you're in war, most of it's blowing a door up. But what I found completely weird about this game, Matty, is two things. The explosions for grenades, C4, and mines are the worst I've ever seen in a game. It's ridiculous. When you shoot a mine or drop a grenade or put C4 on a wall, I'm not lying. It's like this. It's so weird. It's so weird. And there's a part of the game where they're like, you need to go and fucking destroy all these mines so our people can get through. And you're shooting them. And it's like, bink, bink, bink. And that happens in zombies as well because you're trying to blow your way out of multiple doors. But you know what? They offer a lot of modes, which I think is a positive. You got your multiplayer, you got your Warzone. Warzone's the big one, right? Because I've yet to jump into that. I'm doing that today. Warzone is the big one.
That's the 200 gigabyte monster.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. And then multiplayer normal, which I'm going to try today, and then zombies. So to me, they're offering a lot. So every one of them is not going to be perfect.
Yeah. It does sound like a pretty robust package, all things considered. Did you mess around? How much did you mess around with multiplayer?
Just barely to see if it worked, and TTK I didn't really get to figure out. I think, how did it go? We talked about this before. I'm trying to remember the last one I really liked. Okay, so I didn't mind Modern Warfare very much, and I think that's the one you didn't like, right?
I didn't like Modern Warfare as much as I thought I would. A lot of people were big on it because of its changed engine, but it did not feel right.
It didn't feel right to you? Okay. And then there were some others I've liked. I don't remember if I'm on the side that likes the faster or the slower. I'll have to go back and look at what people assume all these are. But, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's got any PR oomph behind it, if that makes sense. I haven't heard anybody talking about multiplayer in that game at all. Like, at all. And I think that's just because there's so many games right now. So I would say the one big warning I have is that this will be dead in an insanely short amount of time.
Oh, you think? Wow.
I do. Unless there's something I'm not gathering, I think there's so much discussion about next gen and all these other things that it may be difficult for them to grab on. And also Modern Warfare isn't that long ago. I mean, it was a year or two, a year.
I think it stayed in the conversation so much because Warzone is like almost its own thing.
Exactly. And so I think that's what's happened for me. So standing away and just looking at it and listening to people talk or lack of talk, that's the one thing I'm not hearing a lot of like super excitement. For example, I haven't seen a bunch of people doing a shit ton of map videos. I haven't looked at videos today though, so it could be that today a bunch of people have done that, but I haven't seen the. You know what it is. You were in Fallout where you get the community behind it and everybody, that's all they can talk about. I haven't seen anybody say, this map is, it just seems like they're not talking about it. So I'm going to want to wait and see on that.
Yeah. I would say look up Noah J. He's the guy who did a lot of zombies walkthroughs, at least back then. I don't know what he's doing now, but he was like the zombies guy along with a couple of others. So if he's doing something on it, then that would be
and it's probably going to be a thing. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Like he was doing Easter eggs, I think they were like digging through the story, all that stuff. But I'm interested. I'm excited to dive in. That definitely has me. Not that I needed convincing, but I feel better leaping into this. So I'm excited.
By the way, last 3D audio.
Oh yes,
dude, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good in this game.
That's gonna be huge too, because probably even in multiplayer, if you want to sweat, hear someone
absolutely
coming.
True. That's
awesome.
Absolutely true. I didn't even think about that. I used it in the normal a little bit. You'd hear a guy, but I didn't think about that. Yeah, but for sure in the multiplayer.
Awesome. I'm excited to play. We got one more game left, and then it's patron questions. This one I don't imagine will be too long. Astro's Playroom. It's a free, baked-in PS5 game. Literally, when you fire up your console, it is sitting there. It's about, from what I've heard, about 5 hours on average. It's got its own little platinum trophy. It is pretty much a platformer bringing you through the history of PlayStation. Like you'll see a Bloodborne Easter egg, for example, like one of the little Astrobots is wearing a Bloodborne costume. I saw one wearing an Order 1886 costume. As to Karak's dismay, I mentioned a Vita Easter egg there. There's a lot of PlayStation history there. But most importantly, it's designed to really show off DualSense and what the controller is capable of, from motion controls where you're going to climb up a wall to unzipping or zipping up something with the touchpad, the haptic feedback, the vibrations, all that stuff is really pushed rather to its limits on the DualSense and kind of brings it to a whole new level. Now, I was curious right away, Karak, because I know you said you didn't like it as much as other people. I think a lot of folks were really, and I'm not saying it because I think it's bad. I actually really like this game, but I think it was getting overhyped too much because people were just excited. I think people were just very excited because I got in. I messed around for probably half an hour and went, this is cool. And I moved on to another game. Like, I'm going to probably finish it, but it's just, I think a lot, just so for people who are listening, if you haven't gotten a PS5 yet, it is something I think you should mess around with, but it is not this game changer. I think people are just surprised something that came with the box was good, but the original Astro, what was it? Astro VR on PSVR apparently was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was one of the better VR games, and I think for a free game and showing you the DualSense, this is probably it. I think you have to be sold on the DualSense though, and not have other games. Because if you don't have other games, then of course, or if you have the time, but free in 5 hours, hey, that's the shit right there. Like that's positive to me. It just didn't happen. I'm also not I'm very eclectic in like the kiddie games I like, and for whatever reason. You know how it is where you like maybe look at Crash and then you look at like Mario, and people will usually pick one or the other. Like, or even if it's not fully strong, they go towards one goofy look more than the other. Astro has never enticed me graphically, like the look. So I think that just made it the same way.
It reminds me so much of Tearaway. It reminds me so much of that game. Just its interactivity. It's just you're running around and people are just like dancing in circles for no reason. It's
very good interactive, high energy music. So that's all very good.
Yeah. For those who don't know, it's like I said, a platformer. It's also like a collectathon. It's really a very interesting demo of all of PS5's features. Like I think Dustin touched on it earlier. He said that he couldn't find a puzzle piece, so he used the tip system, and it's just like I said, you're gonna see a lot of the functionality of the PS5 itself being put to use here, but it's not served as just a tutorial. Just more so, I think it's just showing what the controller can do. But I think more than anything, it's not even the feel the controller had. A lot of people were talking about the feel with this game. I thought it was the sound. I just thought the little like rattling, like immediately they have you. I think you unzip something, a bunch of Astrobots technically go in your controller, and when you shake it, you hear the noise of it shaking, of like all the Astrobots bouncing around. You hear like little vibrations all over, or feel them, sorry. It's that sound, I think, from the controller that really makes Astro a little bit surprisingly better.
I think people were saying that all of that, the haptics, all the controller sound coming out, all that kind of stuff, you just hadn't heard it before. And so it was very cool for them to be like, oh, and admittedly, like no one really has. You just have to be sort of bought into that or excited by that, which I think is cool because some people probably won't notice some of the DualSense stuff unless they have a game like that. That's like, oh, do this or do that. They may not actually notice some of the cool stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if that sort of plays out and we get a real game from them that does that kind of stuff, that much stuff, because that would also be nice.
Right.
5-hour game on the hard drive is different than like a 12-hour game where like maybe PR is behind it and is like, this is a year. This is one of our big releases. I think that could be very cool.
Yeah, for sure. Not much else to really touch on with it, though. It's just a cool little thing, and I do recommend you at least look into it if you become an owner of a PS5 or you do currently own one. But with that, Karak, we move on into everyone's favorite part from what we read. It is the patron questions. First question comes in from Horse of Fire. How would you, Maddie, Dustin, Karak, each do on American Ninja Warrior if you
wow. Not very well. Not very well at all.
See, I feel like I have decent endurance. I don't have the strength. That's my
dude.
That's my
it's not only that. It's like, have you watched any of those? Like, they're pretty.
While.
Yeah, and there's like the strength things, but like even getting, I think it's the ending where to get up, you have to like run up an inverse curve and then grab the like edge and pull yourself up. That shit's redonk hard.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, man. It's cool to watch other people be superheroes. I know my limits. I'd like to say I'm a mildly athletic person, but that's about as far as it goes. I'm not going to go out there and do superhuman shit.
Break your fucking femur bone on American Ninja or whatever.
Yeah. The John Show writes in, "Hi guys, apologies in advance for my grammar mistakes and best wishes from Germany. No problem. We now know your reasoning why, and that's perfectly fine with us."
Your reasoning?
Yeah, right? That would have been a good time to say that. Thanks for making this podcast and putting my enjoyment of video games on a next level. Here's my question. I'm wondering why both Microsoft and Sony are not using mouse and keyboard support of their consoles on a more extensive level. Especially Microsoft is sitting on a ton of IP that I'm sure a lot of console players would also enjoy, like Age of Empires and Crusader Kings. I get the fact that these games are way less fun to play with a controller, but why not release a console version that only works with mouse and keyboard? They could warn people with on the store with a sticker or on the physical edition that it only works with mouse and keyboard. With the Series X arriving tomorrow, I'm planning to put my old Xbox One X, he put old in quotes, into my office room where I can quickly connect it to a monitor and mouse and keyboard and use it like a gaming PC. But I checked Microsoft's list, and outside of Gears Tactics, there isn't really a game that's available. I'm looking forward to playing with mouse and keyboard support. So this is more your area. I actually haven't experimented at all with mouse and keyboard support. What do you make of Microsoft's moves here on that level?
I think I don't know why Microsoft wouldn't support it more. I do know that originally people had said that they were worried that the USB interface drivers could allow for a hack, because the big thing people don't realize with Xbox is that they were hacked via that software save, and they're very, very careful about what things you can plug in to the USB interface, because you can do crazy shit. But if they already have acceptance for Gears Tactics, my assumption is there's a thought process that a keyboard and mouse makes it less living room friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I also don't think that's magically hurting them if they allow it. Like, if you look for keyboard and it's supported, that's not the same thing as telling everybody they have to use a keyboard. Like, those two they're actually completely opposed choices. So I don't know why Microsoft doesn't do it. Sony's got official mouse and keyboard support. However, I can say I tried this morning and it did not work. But I think that's because I have one of those keyboards with 85 buttons. Special buttons. And I think it was just, you know what I mean? It's like, I think if you're going to expect a console to work, you should probably use like a fairly basic keyboard. My keyboard's like Macro City. So I think that's why. All I'll say is I want more. I think it'd be awesome, because there are some games I would love to play on the console for HDR, and but it doesn't have mouse and keyboard, and sort of sucks.
For sure. Dow writes in asking, what are our current top 5 favorite game developers at this moment in time? 3, I'm sorry, I said 5. 3, top 3 game developers.
Who's Ori?
Ori
Sobi?
is Moon
No, that's
Studio? No.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
It's So Asobi would be one. They're the ones who are doing virtual, the flying game, the flight simulator.
Flight simulator, yep. Yeah, they're interesting to watch, yeah.
Yeah, because they do all kinds of crazy shit. Moon Studios for Ori, and then probably somebody from Focus Home for Greedfall kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna say currently, see, publisher would be easy because I would immediately pick Focus Home because they put out some awesome shit. But because of Greedfall, I am going to say that while Greedfall wasn't one of my favorite games, I will say absolutely Spiders. I want to see what they do next. I think with that Steel Rising that they're doing next, that looks awesome. Platinum Games for sure. They are kind of really rising up. I think Astro Chain was phenomenal, so I'm really looking forward to seeing whatever they do next. They'll have my attention. And Obsidian, of course. Obsidian is, they just make games that really click with me, so that's a no-brainer.
I would put Obsidian as my third as well. Obsidian's definitely, and I like their Pillars games. I know you don't have as much experience with them, but I really like a lot of their stuff.
They're just too fun to watch, man. All right, we move on down to Brown Ninja 97. Hi, Maddie. I have answered the question everyone has on their mind. How many KOTOR clients can I have running at once? With the power of virtual machines, I have managed to run 13 clients of KOTOR at once. Unfortunately, I have to curtail this in Quest as my boss said I can't skip work for KOTOR. History will remember him poorly. Wow.
That's absolutely true. History will remember him poorly.
Yes. But I'm almost speechless here, man. 16. Someone went to the length of seeing how many times you could have KOTOR up. That is fucking amazing.
It's a reasonable test. I think it's a test that society and science need, and it should replace anything that we're currently doing. Dude, investigating the stars. All I'm saying is,
in my PS5 review, I used a copy of KOTOR to use it for scale.
Oh, did you? That's a smart move. Smart move.
Yeah. So. I'm glad that Brown Ninja's on our side here, measuring things up to the greatest game of all time. Mafatcock writes in, what are your short-term and long-term concerns for next gen? AKA this current gen at this point in time. But
I'm going to change mine and say stability, because prior, especially this morning, seeing people responding to my issues, and I got pinged on my own Discord where somebody had an Xbox X die. I think he's trying to figure it out right now, but I think stability is a pretty severe. I'm a little nerve-wracked about stability right now, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I would say. I don't know if this is falling short or long term, but I do get concerned about the offerings, more so on the PlayStation side and the things that they provide, more so with DualSense tips, videos, and some of that just being left to the wayside because the developer
getting lost.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think DualSense could be a very big thing, but if developers don't push for it, then it's just going to be a useless tool, right?
Right.
So that is one of my concerns, that people will not take advantage of it. I think in the next year we will see continuous use of it, but I'm more worried about after that. So I guess that'd be semi-long term. In the short term, and this is going to sound weird because it looks like 2021's already shaping up pretty nicely, but I always think of 2014, the year after new consoles launched, where when I was looking at my hours on all the games I played on my PS4, obviously it goes right back to the beginning of that generation. I looked and I had like 5 games that I found pretty just okay in a row. And there really wasn't until Transistor came out I saw that I was like, wow, this is spectacular. So I just hope that the games continue to deliver. I always worry in that first year as we learn new tech and we transition with all this power and different tool sets, that some games might fall into a Godfall scenario where it's very void of anything.
Right.
I feel we experienced that a lot of under deliveries in 2014. And so I'm just hoping here with next gen, that's not the case, which it's possible. Some teething issues, but we'll see. Okay. Let's see here. Dow writes in saying, I just beat Vampire and loved it. If they made a sequel, when and where would you like it to be set? I would like it to I think that's what they probably do, is just follow up from what...
Yeah, that's a good question, because I would also say follow up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't think I'd...
Like,
I like that time point, right?
I was going to say, there's nothing bad about that time point at all. In fact, what I'd like to see them do is go back to that same location and make things bigger, and more open. I think they did, for a semi-open world game, pretty good traversal. There wasn't too much district-to-district sprints like we see in some of those types of games, like a Thief from, hey, guess what, 2014. But yeah, I would like to see more. I imagine we'll see more. They said if it sells 1 million copies, they'll do a sequel. It sold 1 million copies, so as long as Focus Home delivers on their promise, we will see more Vampire eventually. It's been 2 years since it came out, so maybe in another year or so we'll start to hear something about the game.
And dude, it's also that they said the 1 million thing a while ago, and that it sold 1 million. It's like, who knows how many it's sold now. It's been on sale multiple times. It's on multiple consoles.
Yeah.
Switch. Yeah, it's like at some point now, hopefully it's just a little bit of butter for the bread kind of thing, where they're already looking at it, and this just helps them know that people want it. Because man, that game may not have got the best reviews in the world, but to have sold over 1 million and get a Switch port and still be considered, like, I mean, most people I know who talk about it are fans. I mean, some people disliked it, but not that intense dislike. It was either it was okay or they really found something special about it, which is very cool.
Yeah, that's where I sat on it. I thought it was a pretty special game. It was one of my more favorite RPGs of the gen. Like, it just very unique universe. Playing as a vampire is cool. I love Jonathan Reed's voice actor, just fucking phenomenal.
Plague Tales is the same way. Another game where I just was not expecting, I didn't know what to expect, and it turned out just phenomenal.
Both published by Focus Home, so there's something
there.
there.
No shit, right?
Something there. I'm just saying they either do something really good with the budget, or the teams that they work with. I genuinely think, direction-wise, I think that A Plague Tale: Innocence is probably one of the best directed experiences of the generation. Like,
for sure,
everything it wanted to do, it did perfectly. It doesn't mean it did everything. It's just that what the developer clearly said, this is what we want to do here. They did it just right. And you could say that to some extent with Vampire, like its conversation system, they nailed. And the clue system, they nailed. I feel like they do a really good job guiding teams and testing, probably. Steve Wolf writes in, do you think we will see VR for next gen? I feel like it never really took off, and I never found a reason to truly invest in a VR headset this past gen. We had a little bit of a burst of VR titles with, what was it? Azure's Wrath or something like that. And then there was Half-Life Alyx. There was
One Astrobot.
Yeah, Astrobot. There was Bones something. I'm forgetting all these names. I apologize. But there was a burst of VR titles, and now we're kind of just waiting on, I'd say, out of big VR games, Medal of Honor maybe, and then it's sort of nothing else right now. So we're seeing these titles pop out every so often. I imagine, my guess is you will see PlayStation do a PSVR 2, because I know the PSVR, although VR as a whole isn't crazy super, I don't want to say successful, but it's not like the booming success that I think people look for with a PS5 or something like that, which is, I think, normal. But once these devices start to shrink down more, and they're not like these, as I think we talked about 2 weeks ago, like PCs just attached to your face, I think you'll see more people investing. But I imagine you're going to see Sony, who continues to lead the market, is what I was getting at, in VR. Despite it not being super popular, they are the most popular headset because of accessibility, price options, all that stuff. And simplistic, you just hook it up and put the disc in. It's a lot less interaction than something with a PC. I imagine we'll see more pushing of that down the line.
I also think that if Bethesda, if we are going to see future stuff, look to see what Bethesda announces, because they're the only ones who have done full giant games, even if they were ports. So if we see Bethesda and Microsoft start talking about VR ever, then I think then you can assume a Microsoft headset of some kind is is headed here. Sony's is for sure headed here. It's just when,
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Coach Blue reminds me to go back to his question last week if Karak is here. Oh yes, this was a Crusader Kings 3 message. Since I don't think Maddie or Dustin have played Crusader Kings 3 yet, this wet dream idea is mostly for Karak. Imagine a game that's a hybrid of Crusader Kings 3 and AC Valhalla. The game would mostly be Crusader Kings, but if you started an assassination plot, then you go into a Valhalla open world and play as an assassin, or if you started a war, you could take control of a general and play third person in that war. Such a hybrid sounds super unlikely, but man, it makes me feel things. What do you think of this idea? And thank you for the reminder, Coach.
Awesome. Blue. Yeah, I mean, stuff like that is actually what intrigues me. It reminds me of the old days where a game couldn't have more than one type of game in it, where you could only race.
Yeah.
Like that was it. You weren't able to, like, they didn't have the technology, and so some games choose to only be racers now, but in the past it was actually they were forced to, and then suddenly somebody was like, hey, what about like fucking driving around a fairly linear world, but when you get out you can walk around in a building, and it just sort of grew up from there. So the idea of something like that would actually be really cool to me. The idea of having like mini games at the end of the politics would be awesome. What were you saying?
I was just saying, it kind of reminds me of Mountain Blade Warband 2 from what I saw, where there's that.
That is exactly. You're right.
Yeah. It's kind of like that, right? That overhead and you can maneuver the map, and then when you zoom in, it's almost like Battlefront, like the OG Battlefronts even. Like it's a very peculiar game. I have yet to try it, but I couldn't help but think of that.
So good. Yeah. It's so good because it looks like you would not care. It looks sort of like Dump. It doesn't look very good. And then you go into like a place and some dude's sitting in a corner. And he's like, I have 8 men and I will rent them for $30. And you're like, huh? And you rent them. And that first time you like get attacked by bandits, and it's like, do you want a quick attack, defend, which never do that in games. You always die. Or, do you want to manually play, and you hit that manual, it loads into the world. And it's even though it looks like Dump, dude, it's still, that game is awesome. Though those games I'm a big fan of. This new one came in early access, wasn't the greatest, but the original that came out and Warband were just, there's something about them.
Wanted to wait for that one to be out of early access, but I saw Game Pass as Mountain Blade Warband 1.
I know, yeah.
I didn't even know that was on consoles.
I didn't even know it was a thing either. And dude, there's something about them that like, it's awesome to buy your guys in a game and then be on horseback beside them. It's another step, because normally it's like you buy dudes for the fucking grinder and you just throw them out there and they die and you're like, whatever.
Civilization.
And now, yeah, when you save a dude in this, it's pretty fucking wicked, because like you'll see a guy on a hill and he's like fighting, you can tell he's got hit from his animations, and you ride your horse up and you're like, wah, wah, and you have no clue who he is because he doesn't have a name or anything, but you're just like, I saved him. And then when you go back out, it says 47 lives or 47 guys, are under your command, and you're like, it would have been 46, but I saved that dude. And it's stupid, but it works. It works really well.
I get it. That's awesome. MrMattyPlays writes in saying, congrats on making it to next gen, everyone. My question is, what did you feel as you first opened the new consoles? Did you take a deep sigh of relief? Did you feel anxiety about all the work coming your way? Was it complete nirvana, or was it something else? We're going to have vastly different answers here, aren't we? Because you got yours pretty early, and I got mine launch day.
Oh, true.
So what did you I know, like, I'm in the boat, and I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I'm kind of in the boat where when companies send me gifts, I'm relatively detached. Like, there are pleasant surprises, like the Mafia one you and I have talked about, like getting a new keyboard, especially when I fucking needed one. I was like,
so
whoa, this is awesome.
It was ace. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are moments like that where you go, wow, it's cool, but then you'll get like energy drinks, and I don't drink energy drinks, so I'm like,
did you get those?
Yeah, I heard my mom during the podcast. I heard her say, I heard her go Cyberpunk, and I'm like, why is she talking about Cyberpunk? Then I heard energy drinks, and I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, did I get them? So I'm guessing I did, but yeah, it's just like one of those things where I'm like, I don't really drink, but I don't want to sound ungrateful. I'm just saying I've detached myself from it in the extent of I don't want it to sway my opinion on games. But when you get a new shiny console, did you feel anything? Were you detached from it? Were you just like, all right, time to get to work?
Yeah, probably time to get to work. I mean, it was
that.
because my timing was early, which was nice for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have a weird feeling of like I got to make. I normally don't worry about doing a good job. Obviously, you can tell by my shit. But this time I got it, and I started to feel like, okay, I got to make sure that I don't let. So these guys put me on a list that was fairly short. You know, it was. I mean, people think a lot of people got it, and when you consider a lot of people didn't really get them. Like a lot of people did, but not when you consider the world. How many millions of people have YouTubes or what have you? So I felt a weird feeling of like I got to make sure that the people who gave them to me, even if I don't like their stuff, feel like I did something, because I do know a lot of people who got them who didn't even do. I know some big YouTubers / websites that got them and haven't even like done an impressions, and this was the one time where like I got to make sure I do that. You know, I got to make sure that they know, even if I didn't like it, they got to know that giving it to me is going to get something.
For sure. Yeah, for me it was more of a relief because I knew I had the mentality of I've got to get to work, but I'm looking at the boxes right now. Yeah, just opening them up was really exciting. You know, I didn't take a deep breath or anything like that.
Yeah,
because I think I knew work was on the other side of it, but also it was relief that I finally had them, where I had, you know, like a slight degree of FOMO watching creators get them and like post tons of videos on them. And I was just very nervous that I was going to fall behind. That, you know, why would someone come to me when they got 18 other people, even because 18 isn't a lot in total, but 18 different creators all posting their reviews on the same day is a lot for someone to consume. And I'm like, why would someone care about my day and date review of the console? At least when it came to my Series X and to some extent my PS5, it seems I was wrong there. But it was definitely one of those situations where I felt relief just to have it finally. And then, you know, the Series X, it was exciting because it's like, wow, it's here. But then the PS5 was different because I got my games first. I went out to Target, got my games, and came home to the console. So I was like holding the PS5 games going like, holy shit, okay, like, wow, I get to play new stuff for my new system. That's super exciting. So for me, it was no question of excitement, but it was also a process. I took down my TV. I have boxes on boxes to the left of me.
There was a process getting shit set up.
Because I remember when I got my PS4 and my Xbox One, it was pretty quick swap. And I had space, but these consoles are, you know, in no understatement, very big. And so,
or ungainly, because even the Xbox X isn't as big, but it is a tube, right? It's not a flat panel like normal.
Yeah, exactly, man. And so it required like a setup and everything. I cleared out my whole dresser because that's where most of my stuff sits, beneath my TV. And so it was different. It was different for sure. When I think of my Switch, it was like, all right, hype, plug this in, let it charge. Here we go. You know, that's the worst thing about getting anything handheld. You got to wait for it to fucking charge first.
Yeah, no shit, right?
Yeah. But exciting times. Red Eyes White Wolf writes in saying, asking, regarding the Series X and PS5, what are your favorite hidden features of both consoles or things that most people just aren't talking about? I think for me, it's still, as I touched on earlier, the speaker from the PS5 controller, the DualSense. I think that's probably it. More so because the buzz has been around the feeling of it, and I don't want to sound like broken record, so I'll keep it short. Just the sounds it produces and the quality of them, and they are as Dustin said, the under the radar sounds. I think it adds something that is pretty hard to place your finger on, which is why it hasn't really been talked about too much.
Well, for mine, the Xbox X can at least use external storage as cold storage, which the PS5 can't. Fuckers.
Yeah, that's something fucking weird, right?
Mind-boggling fucking omission on Sony's part, because that fucked me up. I had to re-download multiple games because you can't move them. It sucked. It sucked for testing. But I would say, like, hidden or surprise, they're really the sad truth of today is they're so inspected now that I don't know if there is a surprise. If that makes sense. Like,
I get that.
There's just everything has been clinically inspected like a fucking, VD test. I'm trying to think of anything that's occurred.
Did they talk about Game Switcher much on PS5? Because I didn't even know that was a thing. I knew Xbox had Quick Resume, but I didn't know much about Game Switcher.
I don't, probably because it didn't Quick Resume. I don't think they did, but to me, because it's just an icon so it just loads up. It's very cool that it's there, but I don't think it was like anything they mentioned.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll tell you one. I don't think it'll be used. It may be used. I really enjoyed picture-in-picture on the PlayStation 5. So I wasn't able to talk about it during review, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was I was watching a Twitch streamer, and I was playing a game, and I had him, on the corner as a box as I was playing my game, and I was like, and the reason why it's cool is because on PC, what do we do all the time? YouTube's up in one corner while we're hacking a fucking Adobe to get it to work, that kind of shit. So being able to do that on the PS5 is actually, that's cool. We knew about it, but I like it a lot.
All right. Awesome. Now we're off the walls here, Karak. Mac the Knife writes in, love me some co-op games. Dying Light is my favorite game of all time. That is an interesting pick. That's what
you played one game. Yeah. That's the only way that's possible.
Mac, you gonna take that? Would love to know what games you enjoy a ton, but wish the series or game had co-op functionality for the entire game and not just side cooperations. I feel that the new Assassin's Creed, single-player Fallout, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Days Gone would be an awesome experience if co-op was added. I'm still a believer we're gonna see a bunch
of those for me.
Yeah, right. I feel I was gonna say Assassin's Creed because I thought fucking Unity was sick, dude. Like I loved Unity's co-op. It was more like co-op missions, but I would love to see Assassin's Creed take a crack at that again. I almost want to just take that answer. The other one is I always go to Pokemon, don't I? I'm gonna stop myself. I always go to Pokemon. You know
for
what?
Me, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't know why online the Dynasty Warriors games don't have co-op. It's usually like couch co-op. Yeah. And I don't know why. Those are fun, laid-back beat-em-ups. I would love to play those with a friend. And also the Lego games. I don't know if they've done those in the recent ones. I haven't played a Lego game since, I think, Marvel Superheroes 2. But, yeah, I would love to play online co-op Lego games for sure. For sure. Those. Oops, I just kicked my desk. Sorry about that. But those are a couple that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, Dishonored would have been cool.
Oh,
so I think that would have made me like it a lot more. And would have the idea of juggling trying to juggle bad guys and stuff, just that really entices me. Assassin's Creed a little less, but still high. But it's third person, which co-op third person is a little more janky because you're seeing them do shit and you're doing shit, and it can get a little weird sometimes versus a first person.
Interesting.
Thief 4, but again, that's basically just Dishonored. Yeah, those are the ones that I mean, honestly, Outer Worlds / Fallout. I like the idea of co-op in those, and I would have loved to have seen co-op in Outer Worlds, just jumping into a fucking ship together, because I think they think that you need to have it be hugely impactful, but sometimes I just want to hang with a pal, if that makes sense. In fact, I would say 99% of all games degenerate to me just hanging with a pal, and not into with co-op, one person fucking builds the wall, one person builds the floor. It's like, yeah, I don't fucking care. But if we can just ride a horse or fucking fly in a spaceship and follow these missions. Yeah, Outer Worlds, in fact, I know that sounds really weird because it's not a big blockbuster game, but the idea of those NPCs, a person just being able to pop in and take one of them would have been very cool. I would have loved that, in fact. Be like, this person is now playing, I don't even remember their names. What's her name? The one I liked so much.
In what game?
Brunette. In Outer Worlds, the brunette.
Wow, how am I forgetting this?
Not Calliope, but...
No, I know exactly who you're talking about. Why?
But you know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
If a friend was able to just come... Who?
Parvati? In the
Parvati, yeah. Cheese. She's named after cheese to me. So, yes, that is exactly it. Imagine just hanging out. Your friend's like, hey, man, I'll take over Parvati. And you're like, okay. And that, to me, would be awesome.
I think the best candidate currently that I can't fathom why they wouldn't do it is Fallout 4. I know that sounds weird.
Agreed completely. No, I agree.
I think tabbing it one person
Yep.
And I don't think that would take away from 76. That game has so many locations that are just shoot 'em ups. The game has higher difficulties where enemies are spongier. It would work. It would absolutely work. It's about if the quest would work. But, dude, that game would...
Well, here's the thing, Matty. You don't even... I mean, I don't mind being an NPC in your game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's why I'm always surprised these don't happen, where they're like, okay, do you want to be the other person's NPC? Maybe you'll get some money shipped to you for doing it or whatever, and you're not able to, adjust these main, story beats or whatever, but you can still shoot people and run around, which is what the fucking AI is doing already. So
yeah, man. Yeah. One of these days. Natural Calamity writes in multiple questions. Only two, though.
Yeah.
What I have been playing is a lot of Skyrim over on Twitch, Firefight666, shameless plug, we'll allow it this time. Wait, I see here. I've been playing some Sims 4 thanks to Game Pass, love you Microsoft, and last night I was playing some Call of Duty Cold War. Nice. Question 1 is, a thing that was really a pleasant surprise for me was that the Cold War campaign, Raven Software really went out to add new mechanics, lockpicking, detection meters, side missions. So my question is, have you played any of the campaign? And if so, what did you think of the changes? We did answer this already. Plus, do you think this will be a new trend for Call of Duty? We did not talk about this. Did Raven Software create a new wave of ideas? So do you think we'll see, based off what you experienced, do you think we'll see any of these new ideas in future Call of Duties?
Are they pretty egotistical between themselves? Have they done that? Has somebody made something amongst these 3 or 4 companies?
And this is a complete outside looking in opinion. I think Infinity Ward 100% does, because they never fucking change their shit, ever. It's always the same.
Okay. I guess I would just say it depends on who it is. I would love to see it. I think the lockpicking was fine. Well, it wasn't really lockpicking, let's be honest, but it's in there. Stealth meter was fun. Locations, it's all about location, though. And they did a fantastic job. And so I would care more about the location and stealth being merged together well than any extra mechanics being added on. It was enjoyable location. Very enjoyable.
Awesome.
Lots of high tension in that particular level.
Question. The government has now mandated that life has achievements. Give me 5 achievements that you think should be on the list collectively, or 5 of your own. Then give me what you think the platinum for life should be.
Been in a life or death situation.
Okay.
Had a loved one die. Close loved one die. Make a mistake you can't take back. Absolutely life-changing mistake. Traveled out of your country.
Okay.
Country, nation. Yeah, nation. Wait.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. One of those two.
Travel beyond the borders.
Big time travel. And spent 1 year volunteering somewhere. Those would be my 5.
Okay. I'm going to take the travel one because I think that's an obvious one, right? Travel.
Yeah, I think it's obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, travel somewhere. I'm going to say graduate high school.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's a good one, right?
I think that's a life achievement.
Whoops.
Let's see here. I'm going to say try something out of your comfort zone. Is an achievement. You got to go out of your way for that one. I mean something really out of your comfort zone. Like go golfing even though you're a fucking nerd, right? Like go ahead, do it. I'm going to say a first big purchase, like a car, an apartment, rent, house, whatever you will.
Yeah.
First big purchase. 5th one. Okay, here's one. Win a fist fight. Or
be in one.
Or be in one, yeah. Participation reward here.
Bro, getting your face punched in is uniquely it's an awe-inspiring moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the first time you have somebody punch your face in and you're like, you have like one choice. Well, you have 2 choices. It's like, this will never be my thing or it's going to be my thing. And you can feel yourself make the choice right then because it is beyond mildly discomforting to have somebody deliver damage directly in your face. It's not a push in the back, right? Because all my students will be like, why is it a big deal? And I'm like, no, you don't understand, man. It's like, it's somebody usurping their will onto you in absolute fashion.
You feel vulnerable,
man. Yeah, and I don't mean just beating. I'm just saying that first time somebody punches you, you're like, whoa, there is no defense. I can't talk my way out of that. We all saw what just happened. I just got punched in the face. Like, how I'm going to deal with that? So, yeah, that's a good one. This is a very good one. I like that answer.
Yeah, man. Because, martial arts, that's where I was hit first in the face, man. And you're just like, whoa. Like, for me, it was also getting kicked right in the gut. And, like, I had to take a knee for a sec because he knocked the wind out of me. He caught right under my thigh. It was a perfect kick, man. Like, he just nailed me. And you either choose right there, you're like, I need to fucking run at this guy because he just kicked me in the wrong area. Or I just need to honor the kick and tell him good job. Yep. That's what I did.
Or I need to poison him later that night with a mixture of hemlock and nicotine. I'm just...
Pardon me. Bonus question. Just want to hear Karak's take on it. What game series do you think will have the same fluidity as the Warhammer series? I would like to see Halo do this.
Oh, he means like bounce around to different.
Yeah, going crazy with it. We answered.
Dishonored's got a D&D game now. Did you know that?
Does it really?
Yeah, Dishonored's got a full-flight. I don't know how supported it is, Matty, but I just saw this a couple days ago and I was actually interested. I'm gonna probably end up buying it, but it's a full-on, the world. What's that? Bulwark? Not bulwark. What's the?
Dunwall.
Dunwall. There's something work at the end, but anyway, yeah,
maybe
Dunkirk or is that something Kirk? Long story short, it's the RPG. It's got the rules and it's got the location all set up as well as characters. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Really? Okay, so it's like a thing. Is it like tabletop thing you buy?
RPG, like full D&D. So not a tabletop, but in your mind, like sitting around a table.
So what do you? I'm confused. What you pay for?
Yeah.
What do you pay for exactly?
I think it's $15-20 for the rule book, like 300 pages.
Okay. Ooh,
it's like 5th edition, but its own D&D game.
Okay. Hold on, I'm looking up Dishonored 2 now because it's bothering me that I don't know its setting.
Yeah, because like something Dunkirk or something Kirk keeps popping. Dunkirk is a fucking World War I thing, but I don't know World War II, World War I.
I think Dunwall.
Is it Dunwall?
Karnaka?
Oh, Karnaka. Yeah. No, that wasn't it. I was just wrong. But yeah, that I mean, when it comes to like things, Warhammer's probably the biggest. I don't know of any other. Halo has done it with books, and Gears of War's got its own. Did you see Demon Souls has its own a board game, or was it Dark Souls?
Oh yeah, Dark Souls. Dark Souls has one. Yeah, I've seen that in a store before. It's like what the.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? But... Like, you wouldn't, like, how fun is that going to be? You make a step, you die. Oh.
It's like, all right, back to the beginning.
You're dead.
It's like Candyland, but an RPG.
Yeah, here's a 1d10, roll a 1d12, roll a 12 on that. You're like, but that's impossible. Like, roll, dead. Okay, start over. You're like, wait, none of this makes sense. Just fucking can't win no matter what. I got a 1d6. Okay, roll 20 or above. Yeah, like, I mean, Warhammer is probably the best. Warhammer spread to everything, man. Warhammer.
It's almost like its identity. It's just being everything. Yep. It's hard for other games and series to do that. They also have a board game for Divinity, Original Sin.
I saw that. I haven't like looked it up or bought it or anything, but I did see that.
Yeah, I think it was kickstarted, and then it's. I mean, I remember when I was in PAX earlier this year, they were testing it out. I thought I went to go buy it because I thought they were selling it at the booth. They're like, no, we're just doing testing here, which I was like, okay, but I imagine by this point
it's like it's 800 hours long.
Yeah, I was about to say they might as well they just hand you like a novel. It's like a board, like a board and then a novel just on top of it.
Just on top of it. Here you go, just taped around it. Merry Christmas.
Last question of the show comes from the Grimblade. Assuming you all have the new consoles, what is one thing you like and one thing that bothers you but isn't getting much discussion? So we did talk about a lot of things we liked, and we did touch on stuff that we didn't like, but is there something that isn't getting discussion that does overall bother you? You know, I think it's almost too early for me to call something directly. I think the 1440p not being like that, just I don't get that. I don't know how that's actually technologically possible. What happens there? Like, what am I missing on that?
Because they have to so you output it natively at 1440p, which means the actual screen and the pixels match up 1 for 1. If you go to 1080p, you're downsampling, which looks pretty good. if you go up sampling, which is unfortunately what would happen here, you take 1440p pixels and turn them into more pixels with less data. And so it doesn't look as good unless you use some of these new algorithms that they use and stuff, which they're not going to do. So Microsoft has a 1-for-1 resolution where they're like 1440p is supported. And it's a 1-for-1, no up or down scaling. What Sony says is not only do we not do scaling at that, if you plug it in, it just won't see the monitor. And luckily, we've had it's so important, by the way, a monitor company yesterday, I believe it was Acer, stated they are going to firmware patch all their monitors to accept a console mode just from the PS5 so that you can play, like it will do the scaling in the monitor. So that's pretty sad. When a company that does the actual display is fixing it, that probably indicates some people want it. But yeah, I mean that's a weird one. It's a weird one.
Yeah.
I would also say, so both of them need to be plugged in to really start and be a thing. And I know somebody brought that up. They were saying that, you have to, they have to be connected to the internet. I personally feel that that's okay because they're digital devices. They sort of, I expect that. But I would say, PS5 doesn't play Blu-rays, right? Isn't that true?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that because that was one of the things. Give me 1 second.
Really? Wow.
PS5 play Blu-rays, or it's something to that effect. Something. No, it does. It's unlike because that means you can build. There was something going on with the PS5 in particular, and something it supported, and I remember being surprised. But it's not that. That's a good one. I mean, yeah, there's nothing really negative about them, right? There's issues, but I mean, dude, they're super powerful, right? And they're both have improved in places we've wanted them to improve forever. So
yeah, for sure. I guess the only thing I worry about is, and I don't see much discussion, is, and there's an immediate counter to it, which is Watch Dogs Legion's ray tracing. But I worry a little bit about how Yakuza 7 performed on the Series S, I think it was, where it couldn't reach a certain, I don't know if it was a graphical fidelity or a certain frame rate, despite it being like a cross-gen game. And I'm like, okay, this is an out-the-gate game. I feel like it should be topping out it at most places on a Series S. I found that a little worrisome, and I think that got swept under the rug. Now, admittedly, it's cheaper. It's for people who I think care a little bit less, and it's more so like a downloading Game Pass machine. Yeah. So I get that for most who are buying it, it probably will not matter at all because it is that I don't care as much machine.
That is stunning to me because I don't know if you saw the videos, but fucking Xbox Series S looks insane in Valhalla. Mind blowing.
Really?
Dude, I took pictures of the S and the X, and I'm telling you right now, their scaler is so good, it is almost impossible to tell the difference between the S and the X in Valhalla, which to me, it's like, if that can do it. Well, I'm assuming, Yakuza, though, correct me if I'm wrong, Yakuza have always had a little bit of a hedge with their tech, because I'm pretty sure Yakuza on the PC has never been any great shakes either.
I've only played it on PS4, so I'm not entirely sure. I came so close to getting Yakuza 7 yesterday, actually. I was at Target, and I said, hey, can I have Demon Souls? Can I have Miles Morales? And like, oh, we're doing a 2-for-1 deal. Pick any game you want. And I see one copy of Yakuza 7 sitting there. I'm like, oh, yeah. I was like, fuck yeah, I want that. And they were ringing it out, and I guess PS5 games aren't a part of their deal. So I was like...
Are you not going to get that game?
I absolutely am. Just, I don't know when, man.
Okay. Okay, understood.
Yeah, it's just like, I know it's going to be a game I just give my all to, so I got to find a window. Like, my goal is finish what I got on my plate here and then just get to that before the year closes out.
I was just making sure, because I was like, if you were passing that up, I would have had to figure out why. But it's definitely
no shot. That game is way too up my alley.
That's what I thought too. That's why I was like, wait, what? Yeah. What's happening?
That's why I need to play it before the year ends, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is probably a game that has a shot to get it on my game of the year list, and I feel like it would muddy my
or at least an honorable mention. Yeah,
100%. So I want to go ahead and give it a look, and I've heard amazing things about it. So definitely open to that. But that is our final question, Karak. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's episode 277 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast. I've got this bag of popcorn here ready for me to munch on as I game it up tonight.
Skinny pop.
Yeah, skinny pop.
There we go.
I saw. Have you ever gotten baffled by the marketing of something? This says sharing size. I just saw Skinny Pop. I like Skinny Pop. I'll be honest. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it's pretty good. I'll be honest. And I saw this here, this label, and I just thought it's like salty something, so I grabbed it, thinking like, and I moved on. I just see it's sharing size, and I'm like, wow.
Dude, when they're like serving size, I'm like, serving size, bitch, is whatever I can eat out of that bag. Like, I mean, I remember working out with people, and they'd be like, man, I'm on a diet, I got fucking blah, 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 and you see what a real serving size is, and you're like, are you shitting me? How many times have you had breakfast cereal, and you're like, it's a bowl, man, and it's like, you know, it's like a small lagoon. Like there's a chance dolphins and shit are in there. And then you look at the thing and you just ate 32 servings at like 400 calories. And you're like, it was good though.
Yeah, dude. It's my brother. He diets. And so I'll see him come out with his measuring cups and he has a little scale and a weight and he's got like a plop of meat, a little plop of potatoes, and it's like this big plate and then just like little fucking mortar strikes on his plate of food. And I'm like, dude, you're gonna starve. Like I can't.
And it's crazy because it's so easy to get your mind blown into thinking that like a serving is what you eat. Dude, cereal's my fucking weakness. I can't have it in the house because it's ridiculous how much I've eaten before.
Dude, so
like
good.
And cereal's good. Like I have a ton of favorites that pretty much any cereal is my favorite for some strange reason. Milk and crunchy shit is like.
Do you like Pops?
Dude, yeah, anything. I mean, seriously, unless it's like one of those, barley fucking cereals. Dude, I'm not lying. It'll be my favorite at that point. Like somebody will be like, Golden Grahams will be like, that's my favorite right now. It'll be Cheerios. That's my favorite right now. It's something about milk and crunch is like, it lights my fire, man. I love that shit so much. Now I want cereal really bad.
Get
what else?
DoorDashed.
What else do we got next week for games? After that, we've got Monsters and Gods, or Gods and Monsters, isn't it? Or is that?
Yeah, that's
next week.
That's in December, I think, unless they moved it up and I didn't know, because I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, is that December? Oh,
yeah, December. The first week or so of December is kinda busy. You got Phoenix, you've got presumably Cyberpunk, of course, that's a big one, and there's Steel Dawn for Fallout 76. Which, I know not everyone's going to be playing, but that is a pretty significant patch coming to that game. A lot of games cleared out for Cyberpunk, so I wonder how much AC Valhalla's numbers, you brought that up earlier and it didn't click until now. I wonder how much Valhalla's numbers benefited from that Cyberpunk delay. That 2 times the Odyssey player base, man, you got to imagine. Like, the game is great in my opinion, but you got to imagine that's...
Yeah, I mean, dude, they're open world, and like, there's a certain gamer that goes for that, and the fact that it just emptied out. I would say Legion probably also came out a little bit positive on that for sales. Legion came and went, sort of. It didn't really stick around, but I would assume that they saw some positive sales because of Cyberpunk moving. What somebody brought up in my podcast is like, dude, what if they delay it again? Are the delays of the delays going to be delayed again? Because there were companies who were like, we delayed because Cyberpunk delayed. So it's like, all right. So Everspace, for instance, they were very clear. We delayed so that we're not with Cyberpunk. Mm-hmm. So like that's a big deal.
100%, because if people keep moving around for Cyberpunk, then there's going to be a team that gets screwed when they go, we're staying, because there's no shot they release. And then they release.
Yeah, and then they released. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'd be raw. I think also Valhalla. It's Vikings, and we have not had one of my favorite games was the Xbox 360 Viking game.
Oh, yeah, Battle for Asgard, I think.
Yeah, Battle for something like that. Yeah, that game was it made me sick. Fucking had weird like frame rate issues, but I love that game.
Man, I watched gameplay of that recently. I don't know what I saw in that game, man. It is always in slow motion. It's always in slow motion. It's incredible.
It's funny you mention that because I got the PC version, which has all kinds of issues, and I got it anyway and installed it, and it was a disaster. It looked terrible. It controlled terrible. I love that on the 360. So I have no clue what I was thinking.
Game. Yeah, I don't know, man. It wasn't even I had to. Here's the thing, man. The first 2 games I put in my PS3 were that game and then Untold Legends. It's like,
what the hell is Untold Legends?
Dark Kingdom. It's like Untold Legends was a PSP kind of overhead Diablo.
Yeah, overhead.
And then Until Legends 3 was like behind the over the shoulder rather, third person, and let's just say I do not have an affinity for that game quite like the other two that I very much enjoyed on the PSP. It's just like, wow, we had it bad.
Not only remember Gauntlet and shit, like those games, because I was a Dreamcast freak, and they had like 3 Gauntlets on that system.
I remember, I remember you doing that.
And I'll look back at them and I'll be like, damn, really? I mean, damn, like they're rough, and they're rough in a way that I'm like, why wouldn't I have noticed that? I don't know. Maybe at the time, you compare everything and you're just like, nah, it's totally fine, but. Yeah. It's like some of those old games. The first ones I put in my system were Fight Night was a 360 because I bought a little.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was the upgrade, and I had played the Xbox version. I was like, this is fucking awesome. And then the 360 came out. I ignored it for a bit, and then I finally got it, and I turned on the Fight Night for the 360, and I was like, what the fuck? Like it was like your resolution 1080p to 4K suddenly, and you're just like, this guy's got real skin. It's not plastic.
First 360 game I played was that tennis one. I think it was virtual.
Oh,
tennis.
No, not Rockstar. It was or was it Rockstar? It was
know. I just remember my brother got a 360 and I was like, I gotta play the 360, and the only game we had was tennis. So I fired it up, and that's what I played.
One of my favorite games on the Dreamcast was Virtual Tennis. Dude, I used to play the shit out of that. I loved it. I like all those kind of games. It is fun to go back and remember the first games you put in, because I don't even remember what I first put in the Xbox One. Mm-hmm. Probably Rise, because that would have been a release.
Mine was Dead Rising 3.
Oh,
yeah,
wait,
co-op.
was that Dead Rising? Okay, which one was the was that X360 or was that Xbox One?
That was Xbox One, yeah. Xbox One was Rise,
Dead Rising 3.
Something else.
Oh my God, Dead Rising 3 is the dirty looking one, right?
Yes, actually, that's perfect.
Yeah, with Carlos or whatever his name is as the main guy. I like that game. I actually enjoyed that game. Yeah. Okay.
I actually really dug the co-op for that game. It was not. I get why people who really like 1 and 2 didn't like 3, but I just thought the idea of taking like a vehicle, bringing it to my garage, and then turning it into some like zombie muncher was just fucking awesome. I dug it.
I had to fight the guy. There's a gate that won't open, and you need to get inside, and you open it, and a dude on a motorbike tricycle thing comes out, and you have to fight him. He's a boss. And I remember that was one of the first times I've ever got mad in because in Dead Rising, I always knew that it was like, it was a little bit more difficult. There's going to be a timer. 2 came out. They got rid of the timer for a while. They had like the side stories. That one, I remember that was the first time where I almost threw a controller or threw the game away. Because I don't know what it was about that boss. It was because I don't think that game was prepped for cars. And yet you now had cars, and the enemy bosses could occasionally have them. And I just don't think I was able to control him, Carlos, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to play that now.
They probably patched it and whatnot. I wonder how that looks like on the Xbox Series
That's
X
exactly what I'm checking. A Dead Rising on Xbox Series X. I wonder if those are. I might do a video on that. I wonder if those are, enhanced. That's why interesting.
That's why I threw Kakarot in. I'm like, everyone's trying Ghost of Tsushima. I was like, let me just try Kakarot, and it's just. It actually was upgraded to some extent. I thought, wow, okay, that's
might as well check it out. I mean, the thing is like half of those games are the ones I would stick with anyway. The big games I would probably just test, like a Ghost. I've already played it enough. But some of these side games, if it looked good, I would get. All right, hashtag pop. What was it?
Skinny pop.
Hashtag skinny pop. Hashtag skinny pop.
We'll let Karak go. I hear your dog growling like a zombie
Dude,
on the other side of the
that's
door.
a moan. He's in pain. I gotta give him his pain pill. He's just I'm like, I'm coming, dude.
I'm
like
sorry.
an old guy
I feel bad for
in a
holding you up.
Oh no, he does that. He's got it rough right now. He'd be that way anyway. Okay. But yeah, hashtag skinny pop.
All right, sounds good. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you sticking with us, and we hope you enjoyed episode 277. And we will catch you guys next week with what I can't talk here at the end, with whatever the hell happens in our industry.
There we go.
And we'll talk to you guys soon. All right, peace out.
Peace out.